Good evening. I call to order the Lake Havasu City Council regular meeting on Tuesday, December 14th, 2021 at 6 p.m. We'll now have an invocation from Pastor Dean Wiles from Abundant Grace, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance from the Lake Havasu High School National Honor Society. Good evening, Pastor.
All right. Well, let's pray. Heavenly Father, how awesome you are. And we just thank you again for this opportunity where we can freely come in this place and even talk to you. And Lord, we just ask for your wisdom tonight, that everything that's said and done, God, just let it be done with respect and for each other. God, respect for you. And Lord, I just ask for your wisdom with the decisions and different things that are being presented and that would be made. God, we just want an awesome community, and we just thank you again for Lake Havasu. I ask you, Lord, to keep your hand of blessing over this community. God, continue to bless all the businesses and all the institutions, God, in this town. God, let them continue to flourish. God, I ask for your protection over the city council. Again, protection over our first responders as they're doing their duties tonight. God, continue to bless our police chief and our fire chief and their whole team. God, give them a wonderful night tonight. And again, God, bless our city council. Continue to bless Lake Havasu City, all the residents. Let your favor continue to be upon this town. And God, that each one that comes, that they'll just have a fun time in our community. And Lord, again, we love you. We bless you. And again, we just are reminded this season about you, Jesus, coming and being an awesome gift to us from God. And so we just pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hi, my name is Dylan Caton, and I'm the president of the Lake Havasu chapter of the National Honor Society.
Hi, my name is Aubrey Carver, and I'm the vice president.
I'm Rafael Wakisa-Tilloway, and I'm secretary.
As the Lake Havasu High School chapter of the National Honor Society, it is our mission to create an enthusiasm for scholarship, to promote worthy leadership, to stimulate a desire to render service, and to encourage the development of character in the students of the Lake Havasu High School. Every member that is invited, accepted, and inducted into the National Honor Society has already attained the enthusiasm for scholarship we seek in our members. It is the remaining pillars of NHS that we strive for to continue building. Every year, NHS members fundraise and prepare for an annual leadership conference where they have the opportunity to develop the leadership and team building skills while working with schools outside of Arizona. This year, NHS is working hard to accomplish two major service and leadership projects. The first will take place in March. It is called a Day of Service, and we dedicate a project that will leave a lasting impact on the LHHS campus and serve the student body for years to come. The second is a look back on Project Graduation. NHS has plans to bring to life a celebration and graduation for the class of 2022. The goal is to offer LHHS graduates a safe and fun place to celebrate their graduation and each other one last time as LHHS Knights. Questions about ways you can help support LHHS, NHS can be directed to our advisor, Ms. Ashley Byerly. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for being here. Great job. The next item on the agenda is item 4, roll call. Ms. Williams, if you please call the roll.
Council members Nancy Campbell,
Here.
Jim Dolan,
Present.
David Lane,
Here.
Michelle Lynn,
Here.
Cameron Moses,
Here.
Vice Mayor Jenny Koch,
Here.
Mayor Cal Sheehy.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 5 is the call to the public. This is an opportunity where citizens have to address the city council within the jurisdiction on matters within the jurisdiction of Lake Havasu City. Your comments are limited to 3 minutes. So if you'd like to speak, there is a light indicator box next to Ms. Williams. Green means you have 3 minutes. Yellow means that you have 1 minute remaining. And red means that the 3 minutes is up. If you are here to talk on one of our public hearings, we do encourage you to wait till that time because we can have a two-way conversation at that point versus call to the public where we can listen intently to your comments or feedback. And again, we ask that you keep them within the jurisdiction of Lake Havasu City, things that we can do as an elected body. Call to the public is not an open mic night, and and comments must be directed to the city council, not to the staff, not to the audience, again, to the city council. If we can't follow decorum through our meetings, then we will close the public hearing and just proceed to our regular agenda. We have been receiving feedback from citizens that they want to have an open and transparent government, and the only way to do that is to keep decorum in the meeting. So you don't have to sign up for the call to the public, but some folks did. So we'll start with them first. We have Mr. Robert Fisher. If you'd please make your way to the podium. Good evening and welcome.
Oh, thank you. Robert Fisher, 2910 Corral Drive. I live about 4 miles from the airport, and the traffic on a 3-degree glide path goes over my house at about 1,048 feet. I read a few weeks ago where there's a plan to put 400 prefab homes within about 1.5 miles of the airport. That puts the flight path of those airplanes over those homes at about 500 feet or a little less. Now, I like airplane noise. I've worked in the aviation industry for over 30 years. So I was an Air Force pilot, so I like airplane noise, but not everybody does. And, you know, once that had a railroad crossing about 1.5 blocks away, I was there to buy that. There wasn't much of a railroad traffic going by, but at 6 o'clock in the morning, when the mile-long freight trains were going by, I kind of regretted that decision to not pay more attention. So to say that people buying those homes know there's an airport there, yeah, they probably do. But if you ever want to bring scheduled air service in, where you've got a 180,000-pound 737 coming in for a landing, they might not enjoy it so much. And a 2-flight of F-35s coming over, they make some serious noise at my house. And those V-22s, when they come in circling around for a landing, I love those guys, but they can be pretty noisy. And if you're trying to take a nap or have your children down for sleep or something, you might not enjoy it. So I think we ought to try to think about protecting the envelope of the airport to keep it so that it won't be a source of complaints to object to air service coming into us, because we'd sure like to have some. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. That concludes citizens that have signed up for the call to the public. Would anyone else like to address the city council on matters within the jurisdiction of Lake Havasu City? You could just state your name for the record. Good evening and welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Donna Wisdom. I think you know it by now. Curiosity, what's the status on the courthouse? The proposed courthouse.
Yeah, this is the call to the public. That's not on the agenda, but feel free to give me a call tomorrow and I'll talk it over with you.
Oh, all right.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Wisdom. Would anyone else like to address the city council during call to the public? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the call to the public. Move on to item 6 on our agenda, the consent agenda. Would any of the council members like to remove any of the items for separate discussion? See none? Oh, Councilmember Campbell?
Mayor,
Yes,
on the consent agenda, did we have the October 26 minutes on that?
they are. That's
Yeah.
on item 6.1.
How do I pull those out for just some changes?
You can ask to pull that from item 6.1 and we can go ahead and approve the other items included in there, which is the approval of the November 23rd minutes, as well as the council special meeting minutes of November 23rd. And we can have a separate discussion for that item. for
Okay,
October
I'd like
26th.
to pull out October 26 for further discussion.
Okay. Entertain a motion?
Do we have to pull the whole item?
No, I think you can we pull
Wait,
just?
do we have to pull 6.1 total
Okay.
and then vote on them separate? Okay. Mayor,
Yes.
motion to approve the consent agenda minus item 6.1.
Second.
We have a motion from Vice Mayor Koch and a second from Councilmember Lane. Is there any further discussion?
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
No.
So we need to vote on this
Yep.
if there's any further discussion on the consent agenda. So we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. And now we'll revisit item 6.1, which is approve the October 26th, 2021 City Council regular meeting minutes, November 23rd, 2021 City Council special meeting minutes, and November 23rd, 2021 City Council regular meeting minutes. Councilmember Campbell?
My only concern is there was technical difficulties going on October 26th, which could have altered and changed some of the discussions. So I would see confirmation that we put it in the minutes that we were also having technical difficulties. Because as I read through, there were some things, but I'm sure because of all the technical difficulties we're having, if that's possible, can we just make a motion, add technical difficulties were happening to the minutes?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Campbell. Yeah, Ms. Williams?
Yep, I was just going to note that it is noted on page 6, but we could put it in the beginning too. Well, it is noted that due to technical issues, the meeting recessed and then reconvened, but I could put it in further that there were technical
There were
issues
some
with the audio
discussions
and video.
that were omitted, I think, at the very beginning of the technical difficulties.
Okay.
And I don't want to sit here and add every one of them in there. I don't believe they're that important, but you did say technical difficulties, but I do know that some of the beginning portion of it was omitted.
Okay. We can note that.
Yeah, as Ms. Williams described on item page 6, it does say due to technical issues, the meeting recessed at 7:08 p.m. And that the meeting then reconvened at 7:27. But if we want further clarification, that's more than appropriate. I can support that. All right, so we would entertain then a motion to approve item 6.1 with the addition of the October 26th, 2021 council meeting minutes identifying in a second location that we were experiencing technical difficulties. Is that appropriate? Yeah. Oh, great.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Councilmember Lane, a second from Councilmember Dolan to approve item 6.1. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Item 7 is the selection of vice mayor. City code dictates that in our first meeting in December that we make a selection of the vice mayor. As many of you know, we're a council manager form of government, meaning that the council and the mayor are elected by the citizens, and then the council as a whole will select a vice mayor, generally serves in 1 or 2 year increments. Currently, Vice Mayor Koch has served in this capacity. I'll open it up to the council for any discussion.
Mayor?
Yeah, Councilmember Lane?
Yeah, first off, I'd like to thank Vice Mayor Koch for her excellent job during this past year. Much better than the vice mayor y'all had before that. Yeah, nicer hair anyway. Huh?
Councilmember Lane served in that role the year prior to Vice Mayor Koch. Yeah.
Yes. So, you know, the role of vice mayor is extremely important. There's a lot of duties that go along with that other than just the ceremonial duty. Some people have felt over the years that it's a taking turns kind of a thing, and it's really not. It's somebody that can really devote some time. And just for public knowledge, I had a very long discussion with Councilmember Dolan about my duties when I was the vice mayor and what it would entail. And he told me that he felt that he was ready to step up and handle those responsibilities. So I'd like to make a motion to appoint Councilmember Dolan as the vice mayor for the next 12 months.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I could second that.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilmember Lane and a second from Councilmember Moses. Is there any discussion?
Mayor, discussion.
Yes, Councilmember Campbell.
I would like to discuss the fact that Michelle Lynn has been on the board for, I don't know how many years now. Would that be 7? She shows great expertise in her level of concern for the community. I have also witnessed, maybe not seeing her at every social event, but behind the scenes, I've never seen somebody work so hard for the citizens of this community. Her church, the number of boards that Michelle Lynn sits on is enormous. And maybe we don't all recognize everything that she does, but it seems like year after year, we keep stepping over the top of her. And I don't believe that it needs to be a your turn or your turn. I really have to say, even recently, she was one of our first graduates from ASU, and where her goal is to hopefully be a counselor for our community and support our community. So I ask that you all understand, as I know Jim Dolan would do an amazing job, but Michelle Lynn has put in her time and her patience. And I've personally in this past year seen her fight so hard for this community that maybe you don't see her at every proclamation and maybe you don't see her at every meal or every event, because she's also running 2 businesses, raising a family, and fighting for us. At the original coming onto council, she's been through a couple mayors. She's really seen turmoil, and she's grown so much that I have seen in the last 2 to 3 years, for sure. So that is my concern. I would really love to see Michelle Lynn take that position.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember
Mayor.
Campbell. Yeah, Councilmember Lane.
Absolutely. I just want to follow up on that. I have absolute respect and admiration for Councilmember Lynn. She is a phenomenal person. When it comes to children's issues, nobody can hold a candle to her. She is by far above everyone when it comes to those things. And congratulations on your graduation from ASU. I think that's an awesome task. Congratulations with all the stuff that you're doing with your family and your businesses. I think that's great. What it came down to for me, over the last 5 years, I was the vice mayor for 2 years. Mr. Sheehy was the vice mayor for a year. Vice Mayor Koch has been the vice mayor for 2 years. You yourself are relatively new, as is Mr. Moses. So it came down to, in my opinion, to Councilmember Lynn or Councilmember Dolan. They are both highly intelligent and qualified for the position. I looked at it as, for myself personally, who would have the time to be able to put into it. And with all the things that Michelle does, I just thought that Councilmember Dolan would have more time. And I'm not taking anything away from Councilmember Lynn, because I do think she's an awesome person. But thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Lane. Is there any additional discussion? All right, so we do have a motion on the table that we will have to vote for, and that's a motion to name Councilmember Dolan as the vice mayor for the year. Councilmember Dolan, it's a big responsibility, as I'm sure you already know. Do you have the interest, and are you willing to serve in that capacity?
Definitely. In the past few years, I've definitely had this conversation with the mayor. I like to always ask who's coming up and who's willing to serve. And last year, we had a conversation, would I be willing to serve? And with everything going on with my business, I didn't feel like I had the time. But I've been watching very closely the last year, and I'm ready for this kind of responsibility. Yes, and like I said, I have a lot of respect for Councilman Lynn as well. And it was also my understanding, we both kind of had conversations with you over the years about when we might want to step in that role, and at times we've chosen different directions. So yeah, definitely I am ready to serve. So
thank you. All right, is there any additional discussion from the council before we vote? All right, do we have a motion from Councilmember Lane and a second from Councilmember Moses? We're ready to vote.
this is a dumb question, but do I vote? Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Motion carries 5-2.
Thank you. Congratulations, Vice Mayor Dolan. Thank you, Vice Mayor and Councilmember Koch. It always takes me a meeting or two to get that correct, but thank you for your service. You did a fantastic job this year supporting me and the initiatives of the city and representing the city, and I appreciate all of your work. Congratulations, Councilmember Lynn, on your degree. When we meet for our first meeting in January, there will be a different assignments of seating based on the new vice mayor selection. So watch your nameplate when you come in for that first meeting of where you'll be sitting for this next year.
I was going to ask, does that mean I have to sit next to Jim?
Yeah. Everyone's seating arrangement except for mine will potentially be different. So just watch the nameplate. All right, moving on to item 8, correspondence, communications, petitions, announcements, and the city manager report. The first item is item 8.1, fiscal year 2021-22 first quarter contracted agency reports. Chief Doyle has this in here for our review and will be filed unless there are any questions of the council. All right, seeing none, we'll move on to item 8.2, announce vacancies on the Lake Havasu City boards, committees, and commissions. Ms. Williams.
Mayor and City Council, there are a number of vacancies on Lake Havasu City boards, committees, and commissions. The following is a listing of those vacancies. Board of Adjustment, 1 regular member, 3 alternate members. Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, 1 regular member. And the Planning and Zoning Commission, 1 regular member. Citizens can pick up an application at City Hall, and they are also available on the city's website at lhcaz.gov. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 8.3 is the city manager's report. Good evening, Mr. Knutson.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Much to discuss today. Lots going on in the community. On December 3rd, just last week, our Parks and Recreation Department hosted a Sledding with Santa event at our Tennell Memorial Sports Park for the youth in our community. The event saw close to 1,000 people in attendance, with many children sledding and seeing snow for the very first time. There were 6,620 pounds of ice that was chipped to make snow on an 80-degree day, and we had over 1,400 cookies and 20 gallons of hot chocolate that were served by our fire department staff. A special thanks to Mike Keene and his team in the Parks and Recreation who helped put on a wonderful event and came up with this wonderful idea. Thank you, Mike. Just last week on December 10th, we held another successful community dinner at our community center. This year was the 18th year and the 18th anniversary, and Mayor Sheehy proclaimed the day in honor of Chef Trevor Best, who has served as the head chef in the kitchen preparing all of the food for the event for many, many years now. Thank you to all the volunteers, the donors, the local business sponsors, city staff. Special thanks to Parks and Recreation Department, our WAVE culinary students, council members David Lane, Cameron Moses, for the donation of the turkeys, Shamrock, Smiths, Bashes, Abundant Grace, and Pastor Wiles, and Pepsi for the food and beverage donations, to Chagruz and La Vida Dolce for cooking the turkeys for all of us, Anderson Auto Group for sponsoring the Picture Perfect Photography, River Riders MC, Michael Allen Furnishings, and Havasu Community Health Foundation, and the Food Bank for the toy drive and the toy coordination. What a wonderful event that just continues to put a really good feeling in everyone's hearts every single year. And Mayor and Council, you were very busy hitting the town at special events since we last met at our last council meeting. And here's a few to report on. On November 28th, Mayor Sheehy and Councilmember David Lane attended the 42nd annual Christmas tree lighting, and the mayor read "'Twas the Night Before Christmas." A little girl from the crowd named Mia helped the mayor flip the giant switch to light the tree. On November 30th, the mayor proclaimed the day as Debbie Shirley Day, honoring her retirement and the long career in the banking industry in Lake Havasu City. And on December 4th, Mayor proclaimed the day as Lake Havasu City Cares Day in Lake Havasu City, along with Councilmember Michelle Lynn. And later that evening, he presented a proclamation to the Christmas Tubas concert in Lake Havasu City. LHC Cares is a nonprofit organization dedicated to increasing local capacity, improving accessibility, and providing resources, education, and support to the Tri-City area. And the Christmas Tubas, that group brings together tuba and euphonium players of all ages and presents free public concerts with traditional Christmas music that we welcome every single year. On Monday, December 6th, Mayor Sheehy served on a panel for the Arizona Hotel and Lodging Association, speaking on solutions for statewide short-term rental issues that are reflected in Havasu as well as across the state. Thank you for that. On December 7th, Mayor Sheehy proclaimed the day as Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day, honoring the 80th anniversary of the attacks, and presented it to Gus Bader, who initiated bringing a relic of the USS Arizona to Lake Havasu City. On this day, the Marine Corps League 757 displayed the relic in the ceremony under the bridge, and Vice Mayor Jenny Koch and Councilmembers Karen Moses, Nancy Campbell, and David Lane also attended this wonderful event. I'd like to announce the fire department received a grant and made a purchase. The grant was from the Western Arizona Council of Emergency Medical Services. We received a RAD-57 carbon monoxide monitor. The cost for that one unit you see right there is $4,300. This is used to determine carbon monoxide levels if they're present, assisting firefighters, patients, and occupants with possible exposure to carbon monoxide. So a very important tool for our team and our residents. We had a successful hazard household waste event this last Saturday. And it went very well. Republic Services reported we have 154 individuals that properly disposed of their hazardous waste. Special thanks to the LHC CERT team for helping out at this event, and the work you did, Chief Palafis, in organizing this event as well too. We'll do it again next December, so look for that for our next event. Also on the morning of December 11th at 8:30, we had 19 officers with our Lake Havasu City Police Department, along with 27 volunteers, and they welcomed 21 children for the annual Shop with a Cop program to spread cheer this holiday season. They had breakfast. They went to Walmart, where they were met by cheerful employees and were able to shop with the dollars that were provided through our police department. This is a program that was established in 1996 and continues to establish goodwill between our local law enforcement professionals and our children in the community. And we're special recognition that we're able to include the kids at mile markers in this year's program. So another successful and fantastic experience. Now, I'd like to recognize a few employees and their good efforts over the course of the last several years. And we have some flashback pictures. We have here, all the retirements I'm about to announce are going to equal a total of 127 years of service to the community. And we're losing some really good individuals as we go through this. This is Mark Clark, and he retired after 27 years with Lake Havasu City. He worked in our Public Works Department. He was hired full-time as the assistant engineer in 1994, and throughout the years, he held many different positions. That included the transportation manager, the assistant public works director, the interim public works director, the department director, the transportation engineer, the transportation maintenance superintendent, and the operation manager. And lastly, as he retires, he held the office or the title of public works manager. Mark, if you've met him, he's a walking historical museum. He knows everything about Lake Havasu City, specifically the roads and infrastructure and all the history that dates back. Anything and everything you ever want to know about Lake Havasu City, you just have to ask Mark, and he'll tell you off the top of his head. We're going to miss his expertise and all the goodwill that he brought to Lake Havasu. Mark, enjoy your retirement. Yeah. Thank you. Tony Ravello retired after 34 years of service with our Lake Havasu City Fire Department this month. Tony was hired on as a paid-on-call firefighter back in February of 1988 and became a paid-on-call firefighter EMT in 1989, and then a full-time firefighter in 1990. Tony was promoted to engineer in 2001 and in fire captain in 2006. Tony has served our community well and led everybody in the fire department. So we're gonna miss you, Tony, and enjoy your retirement. Janice Brown retires from Lake Havasu City in the Parks and Recreation Department with 17 years of experience. Janice has been the program coordinator since she was hired in 2004. If you dealt with our after-school program or all the different recreation events that take place in the community, including Teen Break, Janice was instrumental, if not the lead, on all of those activities. Her knowledge and experience will be missed by both the department and the community. She's left an imprint on all of us. Janice, thank you for all your hard work, and good luck in your next chapter of life. Here's one of our warriors, and with Ken Porosky. He's retiring after 26 years of service from our Public Works Department. Ken started his career as a part-time police service assistant in 1995. The next year in his career as a full-time position in Public Works. He worked from a service worker to a service worker 2, equipment operator, maintenance tech, maintenance specialist, maintenance lead, field supervisor, maintenance supervisor, field operations supervisor, and finally established his role as a transportation and maintenance superintendent. Led a lot of positive efforts within the community, and we're going to miss not just his efforts as a city, but his carpentry skills, as he's done a lot of renovations throughout many of our buildings. You're going to be sorely missed, Ken, and we appreciate all your efforts. Enjoy your retirement. And I got one more here. I don't think that's a Halloween picture, by the way. I think that's just the typical day in the life of Stuart Schmeling at Lake Havasu City. Stuart, you retire with 20 years of service with the Development Services Department, and you're here surrounded by your family in the audience that are here to recognize your stellar city career. Stu, you came to us as a city planner in September of 1999. You then became a senior planner, a division manager, a zoning administrator, and finished out your career with Lake Havasu City as the Director of Development Services. We all know Stu as knowledgeable, a genuine team member, an out-of-the-box problem solver, and someone who continuously displays a passion for our employees and the community throughout his career with Lake Havasu City. Thank you, Stu, for your dedication and your service to the city. Good luck with your future endeavors, and hopefully your golf game improves a little bit. And then as we turn the corner, it's with great excitement that I can announce the selection of Jeff Tuneman as our next City Development Services Department Director. Mr. Tuneman has many years of building and planning experience, including several years with Lake Havasu City. He started with the city back in 2002 as a plans examiner and was promoted to the position of building official in 2013. He's got a passion and dedication for the community. He's smart and resourceful and understands the importance of providing customer service to our residents. His first day on the job will be Monday, December 20th. Welcome to the team, Jeff. And then real quickly, if I can, I'd like to recognize our employees for their milestone and appreciation. We held a breakfast just last Friday and recognized our employees who celebrated 5, 10, 15, 20 years of service. And we had 60 employees that reached a milestone of over 734 years that was part of that. So really important. Really important for us as a city to recognize our employees for the efforts they do for our residents. So with that, I'd like to, I'm not going to read all the names because I've been taking up a lot of everyone's time here, but I do want to show and highlight some of our employees that they're able to attend that breakfast. These are our employees that celebrated 5 years of work with Lake Havasu City. We're so appreciative of their hard work and their efforts and proud that they've chosen Havasu as their employer. 10 years worth of service is indicated here. I will point out, Council, that Mitch Kalali, Mayor, Judge Kalali, is pictured in here with 10 years of service for Lake Havasu City. And then our 15-year employees, we had a total of 30. And I'll point out as one of the council appointees is Kelly Gary, is our city attorney that's celebrating 15 years of hard work and dedication, along with everybody else pictured here for Lake Havasu City. We had 20-year employees, and we had a total of 13, 4 of which are pictured here. And I can read some of these in terms of 20-year employees. They include Nathan Adler, Michael Blumenkamp, Michael Connolly, Gina Gutierrez, Nicasio Jones, Tim Maple, Carl Stello, and Joseph Tobin, Stephanie Morris, Clint Nelson, Chad Williams, and Ronnie Benjamin and Mark Partita celebrated 20 years of employment with Lake Havasu City. 25 years of employment with Lake Havasu. Ken Porosky and Public Works, we just mentioned his retirement, and Cindy Slack, who served us well in our police department. And finally, Jason Simmons in our Public Works Department, 30 years worth of employment with Lake Havasu City. He serves us well in our wastewater division and Public Works. Thank you, Mr. Simmons, for your hard work and all your efforts. Just a reminder that the city offices will be closed on December 24th and Friday, January 31st for the holidays. Check with the Republic Services for any impacts with your trash and recycling services. Of course, police and fire are always unaffected as they are diligent in providing services to our community. And with that, I will turn it back over to you, Mayor. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Knudsen. All right, we'll move on to item 9, our public hearing, starting with 9.1, a Series 12 restaurant liquor license somewhere in Lake Havasu, 3557 Maricopa Avenue. Ms. Williams.
Mayor and City Council, Alan Redkey has applied for a Series 12 restaurant liquor license for somewhere in Lake Havasu, located at 3557 Maricopa Avenue. All posting requirements have been met, all fees have been paid, and no objections were received. The location is properly zoned for a Series 12 liquor license. Happy to answer any questions, and the applicant is also here tonight to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the council? All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the City Council on this matter? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to council for discussion or possible motion.
Mayor,
Councilmember Moses.
I move to recommend that the Arizona Department of Liquor License and Control approve a Series 12 restaurant liquor license for Somewhere in Lake Havasu, 3557 Maricopa Avenue.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Moses, a second from Councilmember Lane. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Item 9.2 is a Series 7 beer and wine liquor license for Glitch Barcadium at 44 Mulberry Avenue. Ms. Williams.
Mayor and City Council Thomas Wilcox has applied for a Series 7 beer and wine bar liquor license for Glitch Barcadium located at 44 Mulberry Avenue. All posting requirements have been met, all fees have been paid, and no objections were received. The location is properly zoned for a Series 7 liquor license. Happy to answer any questions. And I believe the applicant is also in attendance tonight.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Are there any
Back.
questions or comments from members of the council? All right, seeing that this is a public hearing, would anyone like to address the city council on this matter? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to council for discussion or possible motion.
Mayor, motion.
Yeah, Councilmember Lane.
I move to recommend that the Arizona Department of Liquor Licenses and Control approve a Series number 7 beer and wine bar liquor license for Glitch Barcadium, 44 Mulberry Avenue.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Lane, a second from Councilmember Moses. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Yeah, congratulations. All right, item 9.3 is adopt ordinance number 21-1275, amending the zoning classification and district boundary for 2972 Amigo Drive, tract 2240, block 1, parcel A, from the public lands and facilities P1 district to single family residential R1 district. Mr. Morris.
Honorable Mayor and council members, thank you. The subject property is located on between Amigo Drive and Simatan Drive in the north central part of town. It's kind of an odd-shaped parcel, multi-sided property. It's about 5 acres in size, and it's currently vacant. The property drops in elevation from about 1,000 feet down to about 960 feet. So it's almost 80 feet of drop from Simatan Drive down to Amigo Drive. The abutting properties are a mix of single-family homes and a couple undeveloped vacant properties. The zoning the property is currently zoned P1. The abutting property is zoned single-family residential R1, and properties across Simatan Drive are zoned R2, which is two-family zoning. This property was originally city-owned and was sold at auction in 2018. The applicant was the winning bidder of this property at that time. The applicant's citizens letter, meeting letter states a desire to rezone the property from P1 to R1 in order to sell a portion of the Amigo Drive frontage to an adjacent property owner and build a single-family home on the balance of the lot. The property is currently zoned P1, which does not allow a single-family home. Therefore, the applicant is asking to rezone it to R1 for a future residence, and that would be the same zoning as the majority of the property around this subject property. Future development of the property will be required, of course, go through the appropriate building permit processes. Any lot alterations or splits will require review and approval by city staff. And there were no objections received from any of the reviewing agencies or departments for this project or for this rezone request. That concludes staff's presentation. Open with any questions you may have. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Morris. In the council communication, you present information about the process for city-owned parcels when we sell them, about the zoning. Do you want to explain that for the benefit of the public?
When a property was offered for sale from the city, the zoning, it maintains the zoning that it has when a property was sold. As far as the process for this, there would be the property would be not assessed, but it would be an appraiser would appraise the value of the property. It would go out for a public auction, and then the highest bidder would win the bid, and then that sale of that property would be approved by the city council. Of course, this property was sold as is with the P1 zoning in place, And that was something that was noticed in the sale of the property, that if they're trying to rezone or develop it as a residential property, it'd have to be rezoned to the R1 zoning. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, so going forward, we'll modify the zoning prior to putting the parcel up for sale.
That certainly could be an option. The city could initiate zoning on its own property and rezone it, yes.
Yeah, great. Thank you. All right. Are there any questions or comments for Mr. Morris for members of the council?
I had a question. I mean, there were no stipulations put on this when we sold it that they had to do something specific with it, right?
That's
it was
correct.
Always the intention that eventually it would be rezoned to.
Yeah, rather than this remaining P1 public facilities, if a private citizen purchased the property, it would just make sense to rezone it to a residential use, to use it and enjoy the benefit of the property as a single family home.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Yeah, Councilmember Campbell?
Discussion. I agree with Mayor that we, moving forward, should zone these appropriately and sell them in the zone that we recommend and would like to have happen. And I understand this was usually it's done prior to this. Somehow it just slipped by, but I look forward to seeing that for everybody. Continuing, whoever buys this literally can't do anything with it. So yes, moving forward, I think that they do need to be rezoned prior to.
Thank you. All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this matter? Oh, yes, and you actually signed up, Diane. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, thank you. Good evening and welcome.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
So, good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Diane McHugh, and I live on Amigo Drive, and I am so happy that this zone change is before you tonight. I stand with so many of my neighbors in supporting the action to rezone the property back to its original R1 designation. R1 is a zoning that is in keeping with the character of our neighborhood. It is consistent with all the properties, the adjacent properties, and R1 provides us with assurance and a level of peace of mind that a park, a police station, water tower, parking lot, or other inconsistent land uses will not be developed adjacent to our homes. We appreciate the efforts of the applicant to engage and inform us in this rezoning process. We look forward to welcoming Mr. Hudson to the larger Cimetan Amigo neighborhood, and through this process, they have become friends as well as neighbors. We also want to recognize the excellent work of your staff in representing the interests of the city, hearing the voices of the residents, and understanding the site opportunities and constraints that we believe will lead to the building of a lovely home on Cimetan and the protection of our property values via the removal of the P1 zoning on Amigo Drive. Thank you so much for your time. We urge you to approve this request tonight, and Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Mrs. McHugh. Would anyone else like to address the city council on this matter? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to council. So in front of us, we have a zoning request from P1 to R1. This matter was held, a hearing with the Planning and Zoning Commission on November 3rd, and they are bringing us forward with a recommendation of 7-0 in favor of the rezone request. Are there any additional comments or questions from members of the council? Or entertain a motion?
Mr. Mayor?
Vice Mayor Dolan?
I'll make a motion. It is nice when the people from the community encourage us to make changes in the neighborhood, so I look forward to making this motion. I move to adopt ordinance number 21-1275, amending the zoning classification and district boundary for 2972 Amigo Drive, tract 2240, block 1, parcel A, from public lands and facilities district to single-family residential district.
Second.
We have a motion from Vice Mayor Dolan and a second from Councilmember Campbell. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to item 9.4 is adopt ordinance number 21-1276, approving a planned development rezone for 3204 and 3208 Sweetwater Avenue, tract 2289, block 6, lots 2C and 2D, from multiple family plan development to general commercial plan development to allow storage units per the submitted development plan. Mr. Morris.
Honorable Mayor and council members, thank you. The subject property here is located on Sweetwater Avenue near the southeast corner of Oro Grande Boulevard. An alley abuts the property at the rear. The property is about 2.28 acres and it measures about 400 feet wide by about 250 feet deep. The site is currently undeveloped. As far as the zoning map, the property is currently zoned residential, multiple family planned development. The properties to the south are across the alley are also zoned R3 and developed as single family homes. The property to the east is zoned multiple family RMPD and is home to the South Point condominium project. The properties fronting Sweetwater Avenue to the east of that condominium project on down Sweetwater Avenue are all zoned C2 and have storage units built on them. The property on the corner of Oro Grande and Sweetwater is vacant lot that's currently also zoned C2, but again, it's undeveloped. The Bashu Shopping Center is, of course, across Highway 95, across both Sweetwater and Maricopa Avenue, and it's zoned C1 planned development. The subject property was initially part of the adjacent South Point condominium project, but was not developed. Phase 2 of that project, which lies to the east of that project, was rezoned to C2 in 2017 and then was developed with storage units. In 2008, the subject property was split off and abandoned from the South Point condo project. In the applicant's letter of intent, they request to develop the property as storage units for boats and RVs as phase 2 of the existing development at the southwest corner of Sweetwater and Osborne, which is the storage unit project just to the east of the residential properties there. So they're asking that this be rezoned to C2 with a planned development to allow storage units as a second phase of this other storage unit project. In anticipation of the code amendment that City Council passed not allowing storage units in C2, tried to get ahead of that in anticipation of the City Council eliminating storage units as a right, allowed by right in that zoning district. So they've submitted this planned development request to allow an exception to the underlying C2 zoning to allow storage units. Now, your change to the zoning ordinance goes into effect 90 days from November 23rd, but so it's technically not in effect yet, but they're choosing to go forward with this planned development rezone just to hedge the bet in case it wasn't approved or it was approved. They want to make sure it's still going to be approvable, and they chose this planned development process to allow it. As far as the project itself, the sketch plan here shows the property developed with 2 storage unit buildings. One building is horseshoe shaped around the outside, and then the second building is inside the horseshoe. The maximum building height in the C2 zoning district is 25 feet. The buildings shown in the elevations are about 20 feet tall and will not exceed the 25-foot height limit. The building exteriors are a mix of metal siding and stucco look finish, and with the walls facing the right-of-ways. There'll be landscaping, screening, and parking lot are not shown on the plan, but building permits and design review for compliance with the development code, including parking, landscaping, will be required prior to developing the property. The Planning and Zoning Commission heard this item and recommended approval by a vote of 4-2. That concludes staff's presentation. Open any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. Are there any questions of the council for Mr. Morris? Or and I believe the applicant is here as well, if there are any questions of the applicant as well. Any questions? Yeah, Councilmember Campbell, I'm sorry.
Mayor, thank you.
Yes.
I just want to make a statement that it's a very hot topic. The storage unit issue is a very, very hot topic. And as I'm looking at the year-to-date 2022 revenues, I want to remind Lake Havasu City that 36% of our revenues come from motor vehicles and their parts. I know previous councils had their direction, and what I'm trying to say here is as you look at that, as they come into Lake Havasu City, there are storage unit, storage unit, storage unit. And the original applicant had originally had a C2. They converted it back to multifamily. They owned all the properties. Then they wanted to go back to C2. The original, when they purchased the land, they had the opportunity to build storage units. And as a landowner, it really bothers me, these land right issues. If I buy a piece of property and I know it's zoned a certain way, and I intend to come here and retire and do what I want with that land, I have a really hard time with government overreach getting involved. We as a community can definitely make the facades look better. We can allow them to do what they want to do. And this is the way I feel strongly about this. Obviously, not everybody in this community will agree with me, but inside all these storage units, which are, if you try and get a storage unit right now, you can't. So if you want to move across the town, you can't even find a storage unit. So when I campaigned, I said Lake Havasu City is very unique. What happens out of other cities and what happens in other towns doesn't necessarily always, it's not good for us sometimes. And maybe a community full of storage units is maybe not the most optimum thing that we all wanted in life. But if it's filled with 36% of motor vehicles and parts, and in those motor vehicles and parts, we have gas, fuel, boat detail, repairs, trailer repairs, tire, everything else that goes with it. In itself, it's a dynamic that's so different than all the other communities. So I just wanted to, in public record, get it out there why I feel so comfortable moving forward with storage units in Lake Havasu City. Do I want an Olive Garden? You betcha. Do I want all these other items? Absolutely I do. But at the end of the day, it's the property owner's right to make the property that they purchased feasible and profitable for them. So there's my statement.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for your comments. And the action that the council took related to storage units just makes that they have to go through a PD process so that we can be more active in that. Storage units still are allowed, but they just have to go through a different process. Are there any other comments or thoughts, Councilmember Lane?
Sure. We can do point counterpoint. So I was sitting here on the council when the other piece came before council. That whole section had been zoned for residential for the condos that were there. I voted against this for that piece that was voted to the right there where it says C2 next to the condos. Thank you, Luke. I voted against it then. And the reason I voted against it is because of the condos that are there. When those people bought the condos, that whole area there was supposed to be condos. And then the landowner came in and wanted, didn't feel that condos would be profitable, so wanted to put in storage units. I didn't feel that was the right use based on the other people buying the condos thinking that would be a condo area. And so I voted against it. I was the only one that voted against it. But because for that same reason, I'm against changing this one as well. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Lane.
Mr. Mayor.
Dolan?
This is a hard one, and this is, people ask us all the time, what are you as a city going to do about affordable housing? It's their land to develop as it fits into the general plan. I hate to see it go from multifamily to more storage. I mean, I get it. We need storage units. We also need apartment complexes. But as I've been told many, many, many times, apartment complexes don't pencil out. The return on investment is not there. And I think it's extremely narrow-minded perspective of, I guarantee if you'd have built apartments 10 years ago, you'd be doing very, 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 very fine right now with your long-term return on investment. But I'm with Nancy on this to a point. I mean, it is owners' rights, and if that's how they want to use it within, I have a problem when someone buys a piece of land and wants to put something on there that's not zoned properly. That I have an issue with. But when it is zoned that specific way, and I mean, I do have an issue with this one. It is multifamily. I would like to see it stay multifamily. But yeah, this is a tough one. We're going to see this in many different agenda items coming up today, tomorrow, and next year, and coming from now is how as we as a city solve the housing. Can we authorize that people can live in these things? I think that's going to be the next thing we're going to have to do I'm serious. We're going to have to allow them to put air conditioners and let people live in them because there's nothing available. There's no rentals. Affordable housing is it's kind of a myth until somebody really wants to build it. And like I said, we see people would much rather build storage condos, and I wouldn't blame them. As a business owner, it does make sense to buy it and then sell it and move on to the next thing. So I don't know. I do have a hard time with this one, that it is multifamily already, and we're asking to change it because we were once the council was presented with, hey, we want to put all these condos here or apartments, and now we're being told, never mind, we're going to put storage units there. So I don't know. This is a hard one, and I think it's going to continue in other conversations in the future. So I don't know what the answer is.
Certainly, as our community grows and the number of lots go down, we're going to have these infill challenges. And that, from my perspective, is one of the reasons that we put storage condos through a PD process, so that we can have those conversations to ensure that that's keeping the integrity of the neighborhood project by project as we move forward. So, I mean, those are difficult conversations, and that's what we're here tonight to talk about. Councilmember Campbell?
Mayor, I do want to let everyone know, and the applicant is here, he can explain that he and she purchased this property many years ago, and they converted it into multifamily, that whole section. And they went ahead and tried to accommodate what you were saying, which is housing. And it didn't take them long to realize that the condo and housing and the HOAs and the apartments and the rising rates of water and all this stuff is not something they decide to move forward with. So they're asking now to put it back to what it was. So on this particular applicant, 30 years ago is what I understand, they bought this property, and they split half of it in half and made multi-family out of it. Now they want to just take the other portion. As you can see, as you come into the corridor of Lake Havasu City, it is one storage unit after another. I understand they've spoke to all the neighbors, and they had very little pushback on this decision. And I'm 100% confused on how we fix workforce housing in this community. I wish I knew, but I don't have any solution to that.
Yeah, and so in our council communication, as part of this process, the applicant went through and held a community meeting on October 21st, and a lot of the feedback is really fantastic. And I think obviously those that live in the neighborhood, their voices should be heard as well. And they make comments such as they would prefer it to be storage units. They would prefer this over other uses in a C2 use. And so, I mean, I think that's also important to weigh as well. Before we open the public hearing, does the applicant want to make a presentation or say a few words? No pressure if you don't want to, but if you do, this would be a good opportunity before we open up the public hearing.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Adam Pakes. You all covered it pretty well. Okay, I understand that we do have a workforce housing problem. I am in the storage business, and I've been developing storage for about 6 years now. So this has always been part of phase 2 of a bigger plan. When we bought the parcel that Mr. Lane referenced that got rezoned, this was always the intent to roll it north. What I can tell you is that we were very open with the neighbors and asked them what their opinion was. And in explaining, there was one gentleman, and I'll tell you the positive and the negative so everybody has a full perspective. So right behind AZ West, there's those 6 homes. And so the middle one on Oro Grande, that gentleman was initially not for it. But when we explained to him the density that could be built on the property as it existing zoning, that brought into concerns with traffic counts and how many people would be in his neighborhood. Now, I said, well, that's the way it's zoned now. I said, so unfortunately, you don't really have any say-so as to what we could do if we went that route. He says, well, I would prefer to have a quieter neighbor. And I said, well, that's storage. I said, the ingress, egress of the amount of people that come in and out of a campus that will probably have about 65 to 70 units is far less than an R4 zone property. I do not know the unit count per acre, maybe 15 or more. I don't know that for sure. Mr. Morris?
Well, the density allowed in RM zoning is that maximum density is 20 units per acre.
Okay, so that would be, let's call it 42 units per acre at an average of 2 people per unit. So that's 84 people. There's probably not 84 people per day, probably not even 25 people per day coming in and out of storage. So they saw that as the highest and best use for the immediate surrounding neighbors due to the fact that they wanted to preserve their peace and quiet. So obviously that aligned with my agenda, and that's what I'm reporting to today. Other than that, architecturally, it's going to be 20 feet, no more. And for any type of point of reference that you want to have, you can reference the project that we built adjacent or across the street from Ace Hardware. It'll look probably almost 99% of that. Colors, architecture, jogs in the building, etc. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mayor?
Yeah, Councilmember
Hey,
Moses.
Adam,
Mr.
can I
Baker.
ask you a question, please? Thank you. You develop a lot in town. Why wouldn't this make for a good condo site? Why wouldn't you build condos here?
For living?
Yeah.
Because it's more expensive, and one, it's not my core competency. So we'll start with the obvious one. Secondly, when we did consider it, it doesn't, there's a level of risk there. And my concern, if I'm being honest with you, is the road noise. South Point condos are the only condos on that corridor on both sides of the highway that are living. And so I know that I live on Osborne, and I can clearly hear road noise, and I'm blocked by two storage campuses on Sweetwater. So there's an element of road noise, and that's not something that I'm willing to compete with.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to use this moment to implore you, just like I do every other person who invests in our community, is we have a problem, and we need developers to find creative solutions to solve this. So however this ends tonight, I just implore you to help us solve this problem of workforce housing. And regardless, I appreciate your investment in Lake Havasu.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you. Any other questions? Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Pakes. Yes.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Thank you for your time. I'm Joanna Pellerito. I represent Steve Pelazzola, who's been the owner of the property for over 30 years. So I have notes, but with all the conversation, let's just talk. Nothing would have made Steve Pelazzola happier than to build out South Point. It was C2. He went ahead and took a risk and turned it into R4, thinking that he could build it out. That was his dream. That's what he wanted. It was a struggle to get them sold the first time. That's all I can tell you. Don't want to go into the nightmare of it, of what it was and how long it took. The problem was you have 95 right in front of you, and the noise is tremendous. Has anybody noticed what happened with the noise? What did we have to do as a city? There's a wall up, okay? There's a sound wall. Is there a sound wall any other place in town? So this property is very unique. This is not just a typical piece of property that you might say, well, we should use it for something else. This was C2. A wonderful Phoenix developer came in and thought it'll work. It didn't work. Now he just wants to go back to C2. Now the problem we run into here is the people who are around it, which I have South Point people here that want to talk to you tonight. We met with 4 or 5, the people who live behind said, no way do we want commercial. No way do we want a 7-Eleven or a Pizza Hut, because usually there's a buffer zone. I did real estate most of my life. I've been a developer. You have buffer zones. In this particular case, we got rid of the buffer zone, which was really a mistake from our part. Steve Pelazzola is my cousin. I don't want to say that out loud. But if you don't go ahead and give people buffer zones, the people behind, they all showed up. I have their names somewhere here. They showed up and they said, wait a minute, we don't want anything that close with lights and nights and traffic, because typically you have buffer zones. This piece is unique in that fact. You already have people who this is their homes on the side of us. You have people behind, this is their homes. We have to take into consideration how we're impacting them, instead of just saying, well, for the good of the city, we want to do this. And the one thing I want to say tonight that matters the most to me is, we went ahead and got recommendation from the city and the planning and zoning. You know why? Because it's a current usage. That's okay. It's a proper usage for what we're doing. We started this 8 months ago. We had no idea this was going to happen. You know how shocked we are with all the money and time we've spent to find out all of a sudden. Now the city decides, well, 30 years, everything we've been doing. Adams did phase 1. This is his phase 2. Now all of a sudden, guess what, guys? You're not going to do it. Planning and zoning and the city said, out of respect for the landowner, we're going to go by current zoning uses. I humbly ask you tonight to not be affected by what's going to happen in 90 days or 60 days. I'm going to humbly ask you to please think in the terms of what is approved usage tonight. And I don't want to get emotional, but I'm going to tell you, it's been disappointing to see this when they're not taking into account that Mr. Pelazzola had this land for 30 years, has paid taxes, waited and tried a couple times to put residential back on there, and it never could happen because the market's not there for it, because the highway is there. And now these people are there. They don't want multifamily units all over them or commercial. What they want right now, and you'll hear from them, their thing is just please give us storage units. Maybe we did buy something too close to the highway. Just kind of leave us some peace now. So I hope you please hear what they say. Thank you, and Merry Christmas.
Yeah, thank you, Mrs. Pellerito. All right, we'll go ahead and open up the public hearing at this point. Would anyone like to address the City Council on this matter? If so, just please make your way to the podium and just state your name for the record.
Hello, my name is Armin Bombay. I am a resident in South Point condos, have been for several years. We find storage units very good. The reason being, they're very quiet and they're well kept. And the noise actually is killed a lot from the highway because the ones that are built on the east side, it has killed the noise big time because of it. So we have no problem with the storage units being built. And they're, like I say, they're always kept clean and neat around. And like I know the property right now is a disgrace, the way it is. Other areas of the town are not kept anywhere near where the storage units are. You can walk along there and it's beautiful walk. So I think storage units should be built there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Marla Mason, and I'm the president of South Point. These people have been wonderful to work with. You know, we were real leery when they put in the storage unit on the east end, and they all came to us. And we were a little leery, but they've been such great neighbors. And to clean up that lot and put in storage units, I think that's the way to go. If they weren't the kind of developers that they had for their word on the east end of it, we would say absolutely not. But they've been wonderful to work with. And we're still working with them. And I would hope that you take that into consideration. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll stand on my chair. Tamara Talbot. I'm a owner of a condo at South Point, and I have to admit that the storage units do make it so it's not quite as noisy because of the road noise. So having the storage units on the other side, thank you. Having storage units on the other side would help keep it a little bit quieter as well.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Thank you. You too. Would anyone else like to address the City Council on this matter? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing, bring it back to council for any final discussion or motion.
Mayor?
Yeah, Councilmember Campbell.
Discussion. The 4 founders of our community, the McCulloughs and all that got involved back in the 70s, did an amazing job for us. They designed a community that we are proud of today. And where I feel the problem lies is we had so much government involvement changing and rezoning things along the way. And now today we're sitting here asking ourselves, what happened to workforce housing? Why don't we have it? I would love to know the number of homes that were rezoned, that were multifamily, that were rezoned for residential. And the reasoning why we had C2 along the highways and we have industrial where we have it and what we have going on was a brilliant, well-laid plan. We had oversized lots. Now, if you go to other communities and take a look around, you'll realize how lucky we are to be here. And I think when humans get involved with stuff, they kind of mess it up sometimes. And so here we are today with lots of storage units, but heck, you come into this community, you see storage units, what's the first thing you're thinking? It's your storage unit filled with boats and toys and recreational fun, you're excited to be in Lake Havasu City. So my statement is I'm a strong believer of letting land developers do what they think is right for this community.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Campbell. Just for the record, the way zoning is determined is through the general plan. And the general plan is updated every 10 years and voted and ratified by the voters. Then zoning code is developed off of that. So, since the 70s, during our initial incorporation as a city, the general plan has been updated several times and again ratified by the voters to do that. And that's what we're following here. So when it comes to zoning, those requests come to us from folks that own land that want to rezone it. And so we have these types of hearings. And so I don't think it's government overreach. I think it's the process. And I'm glad people are active and engaged in the process. But that's how that process comes to be. So again, this item that we have is coming to us for a rezone back to its original zoning. It's coming with a recommendation of 4-2 from the Planning and Zoning Commission. Is there any additional discussion or motion?
Mayor, motion.
Yeah, please, Councilmember Moses.
I move to adopt ordinance number 21-1276, approving a planned development rezone for 3204 and 3208 Sweetwater Avenue, tract 2289, block 6, lots 2C and 2D, from multifamily plan development to general commercial plan development to allow storage units with the following condition. 1, the property shall substantially match the development plan provided with the request.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion from Councilmember Moses and a second from Vice Mayor Dolan. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 6-1.
Thank you. All right, moving on to item 9.5 is adopt resolution number 21-3548 for a minor amendment to the future land use map of the city's general plan for 39.54 acres of meets and bounds property located at 6590, 6600, and 6700 Chenoweth Drive and 1800 and 2200 Victoria Farms Road to change the future land use designation from employment to high-density residential. Mr. Morris.
Honorable Mayor and council members, thank you again. The subject property consists of 3 separate properties and a portion of 2 others with a total of just under 40 acres. The properties are currently vacant and undeveloped. They're located east of Highway 95 with access from both Chenoweth Drive and Victoria Farms Road. The subject parcel is near the intersection of Highway 95 and Chenoweth, which has a traffic signal there at the moment. It's located within a city sewer service area with sewer lines available at the intersection of Chenoweth and Victoria Farms Road. It lies within EPCOR's utilities water services, not in the city's service area, water service area, it's in EPCOR's. The abutting property to the northwest is developed as storage units, and there's some other properties farther to the north, which is an RV park ownership system subdivision. And the properties to the south, north, and east are undeveloped. The zoning map, the subject property is a mix of different zoning categories. Light industrial plan development, there's an AP, agricultural preservation, and then there's industrial zoning. The future land use map, which is the long-term plan for the city, the subject property is up here in the northern portion. I'm going to go to the next slide to kind of zoom in some. So here's the subject properties outlined in red. The applicant's letter of intent asks to amend the city's general plan from employment to high-density residential to facilitate development of residential uses for this property. This general plan amendment is the first step in that 2-step process. It's the general plan amendment, and then sometime in the future they could come forward with a rezone. If this request is successful, the applicant then proposes to submit a request to rezone the property to an appropriate zoning district. And I believe they're submitting that application very soon pending this approval. Just a little more information about the categories. The employment, the current land use category of the general plan is employment-related uses such as light manufacturing, research and development, professional office, and office showroom. In addition, heavier industrial uses such as manufacturing, warehousing, and distribution may be permitted. So it encourages heavier industrial type uses such as intense manufacturing, warehousing, distribution, and this types of uses per that existing employment designation should be located away from arterial streets and buffered by light industrial uses such as light manufacturing, research and development, professional office, office showroom, retail, service, and other related uses where feasible. So this employment designation is more of an industrial type zoning is what you'd see as underneath on the ground zoning for these types of areas. The high density residential land use category in the general plan is for things like attached single family residences, townhomes, patio homes, apartments and condos, and co-housing and live work dwellings. It also encourages high density planned communities and accessory structures. Some of the characteristics of this would be high density residential uses that are clustered adjacent to commercial corridors. It allows up to 10 to 20 units per acre, and it allows even higher densities if approved through the city's plan development process. Something else to keep in mind, I'm going to go back to the zoning, the future land use map. The growth projections of the general plan suggest that the capacity section discusses how future land use changes relate to the future land use maps. The general plan suggests that changes may be made by the commission and city council if proposed land use or zoning proposal are consistent with the goals and policies within the general plan. There are currently about 2,600 total acres designated within Lake Havasu City for employment, or the existing employment general plan designation. One could make a strong argument that a city of our size would not anticipate the need for more than 2,500 acres dedicated to industrial uses. The lack of land dedicated to low-cost housing is a problem for many communities in Arizona, including Lake Havasu City. This proposal asks the city to consider changing our philosophy regarding affordable or attainable housing in this specific area by changing the designation to high-density residential, paving the way for a rezoning to begin to address some housing shortage issues. Another thing, when reviewing this request, it may prove useful to ask if there are other areas of the city where this type of development may be established. Parcels of this size, 40 acres or so, or larger, approved for high-density residential uses are not currently found within the originally platted areas of town. The majority of the larger parcels are owned by the state of Arizona or the BLM. These properties in this area of Chenoweth and Victoria Farms Road are in private hands. The state and BLM properties are typically cost prohibitive to acquire and develop and have a low-density residential general plan designation. Since there is so little land already approved for high-density residential, a development of this proposed scale would require a general plan amendment, basically regardless of where it was located. The general plan amendment, if approved, will allow the applicant to apply for a rezoning, which is the next step in the process. This item was recommended for approval by the Planning Commission by a vote of 7-0 in favor. And I know the applicant is also here, Michael, like to make a presentation, and staff's open to any questions you may have also. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Morris. Would any council members have any questions before we bring the applicant up, and then we can do it full? Do you have a question, Councilmember Lynn? Oh, okay, perfect. If the applicant would like to make a presentation or provide any comments.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Merry Christmas. I would like to start off this evening. My name is James Gray. I'm from the Partnership for Economic Development. If we could go to the next slide. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the essential housing problem, and then some of the fundamentals of land valuation and why we need to take different approaches to disrupt the the market a little bit, and then I want to talk about why innovation matters, and then bring up Waylon Gates to discuss the project and introduce Evan Bernstein. So if we could go to the next slide, please. So here we have on the left side, we have existing home sales from July 2019 to June 2021. And you can actually see there's an inverse in the market in March 2021, where there's actually sold listings outdate new listings on the market. But the overall trend line is happening even pre-COVID, where the demand is rising, where the production of new houses is falling behind. Currently, right now, the average home price is $403,000. That's a 30% increase. And as today's News Herald just talked about, that is not slowing down. So that is a lot of market forces coming about. And then the other thing that I think has really exacerbated the problem is so many people have taken rental properties and they've sold them, right? When the valuation jumps that high and you've bought a property to rent out and you have this certain business model, and all of a sudden you're told, well, that house just jumped $150,000. That's a decade's worth of rent. And so they sold them. And that really exacerbated the workforce housing problem. And then let's go to the next slide, because here's where the fundamental problem really comes in. So this is residential land inventory. So if you look at the larger map, this is vacant property over 2.5 acres. As you can see, there's just not a lot of supply to do something in a large scale. If you look at the same metric for vacant residential land to the right, you see the parameter there. It's the property search again is it's June 19 to July 21, and you're going to see the same trend line. You're basically running out of residential lots. So there's a couple ways that you have to deal with land valuations and then diminishing markets. And people like you, I heard you guys kind of slowly discussing it, but in my mind, there's 4 or 5 different options. One is subsidizing, grants, private funding. Those are sometimes can be hard to come by. 2, vertical construction. That is taking the high dollar, the per square piece of land, but trying to put as many units as you can. There's also tremendous cost to that. Anything you go past a second floor, now you're sprinkling everything. You have all kinds of steel. The price goes up. And then there's density. And we're starting to see that. So what is density? We're not really so far in our very, very young history. We haven't seen a lot of that, but what is true density? That's sharing walls, it's sharing ceilings, it's sharing floors. It's even sharing homes. Has anyone heard of a split pad? This is probably in about 5 of the nation's largest cities. Just got passed in Atlanta, where it's allowing people to start splitting homes as apartment complexes. Why? Because they're in the exact same situation you are, but on a grander scale. And then finally, the innovation that these guys bring is removing land from the equation. If we could go to the next slide. So innovation, why does it matter? So right now, the base of why we can't get affordable workforce, essential housing, however you want to say it, because the price of the land, the base component of the construction is just too much. You're literally right now, if you go on a lot search, you're going to arrive somewhere about $140,000 to to about 175,000, and I guarantee all of it needs retention or dirt work to even get it buildable. And if you're even looking at a lot that's 95,000, it probably takes that much to make it buildable. I see one nodding head that understands that. So the base cost is so much money. And then it's how we build, right? If you think about single residents right now, to build a home right now, you generally have about 65 to 70 companies touch every single product. There's no innovation. There's no manufacturing. There's no optimization in it. It is a product, but it costs a lot of money, and all that is just going up. So in this project, where they're removing the land costs and then hoping to get into manufactured efficiency to lower the costs. If you see the picture on the right, this is very much a model of this. It's Verde Ranch. It's in the town of Camp Verde. I walked through that. These are actual photos. This model is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. It's selling for $138,000. It has a pool, it has pickleball courts, it has security, it has all that kind of stuff. And then they pay a space rent on that. But it becomes affordable, and it also allows different options for the developer. It's also in an opportunity zone. I'll talk about that later. The other thing that I would like you to think about a concept like this is you have to get into the shared economy. I know we've talked about this before in different places, but when we're building one-offs, two-offs, here's a situation where the developer's looking to try and solve this problem by creating shared costs of 350 units that would share in gym memberships, pools, security. You're talking about internet services, where all of a sudden, if you have that kind of buying power, you get to lower your overall costs. Even in conservation, you think about water usage. If I go down a fee simple block and there's 20 homes, there's probably 15 pools. That means there's 15 people that are taking care of that pool. But if everyone had one community pool, less water, one pool person, but you'd have to share it with your neighbors. But it does lower the cost, and that's part of their disruption to the market. And then finally, one of the things that I mentioned is, how do these things come about, right? Incentives, grants. So here's one where a local municipality isn't asked to put something in, share the cost. This is literally utilizing the opportunity zone. In the opportunity zone, this project wouldn't even be here without it. So their team is looking to invest about $22 million just in the infrastructure. They have to hold this asset for 10 years and manage it. So it's a big deal, but also they get to realize those tax benefits on a federal level. That's where our local people can rely on why things like this can be built. And then finally, I was going to talk about recognizing essential housing, but I think you guys were already talking about it so much that I just won't. So I'm going to bring up Waylon Gates right now to actually talk about the development.
Good evening, guys, and thanks for letting us present this to you. I'm excited about this project. I want to introduce Evan Bernstein. He came, he and his firm are the money behind this. He came out to support the project and be available to answer any questions tonight, and he's shortly leaving to go back, but he's here for this. Look, if we can go to the next slide. The village is at Victoria Farms. So what we're proposing is a community of manufactured homes that will help reduce the cost of living for all of the residents that are there. Part of the community is creating a sense of community within the project that we're developing. We want there to be safety. We want there to be central management that keeps the quality of the entire community at a very high level. helps retain the value of the investment that Castle Park's making. That helps create a reliable future for all the residents that are there. That's a very important part of it. Gated, we feel like a gated community is desirable in this situation. We know that people that are in there should be, people that aren't are kept out. And then also the amenities, James went into that. By building a community of this size, it gives us the ability to spread the cost of really nice amenities over a lot of residents that are living there. And the plan is to produce a community that has really nice amenities, a beautiful clubhouse with workout facilities, a really nice pool, walking paths for people to get out, walk their dogs, spend time with their family, that type of thing. Pet areas, everybody has pets, or many people have pets, I should say. Pickleball courts, we just saw on the paper that somebody had donated money to build more pickleball courts. I think there's still not enough here from what I understand. We'd make that part of the community. We're also proposing to have multiple options as far as sizes. So from really small, little bit more transient with RVs in a very small portion of it, and I'll show a map of what we're intending to do a little bit later. Tiny homes, and then up to the factory built homes, it'll be 3 and 4 bedroom units. This picture here is the tiny home model. This is the lowest end permanent type of unit that we're proposing to bring. As you can see, it's got great curb appeal. The floor plan's there. It's a 1 bedroom, 1 bath. It's 400 square feet. This is what we're considering the bottom, and then going up from here. And I've got some more pictures of, Luke, we can just go through those. These are actual interior pictures of the unit that we just showed you. The living area, you can kind of go, yeah, just more pictures. It's not tiny. It doesn't feel tiny. It feels very nice. It feels comfortable. It's very respectable. This isn't, I think, what people picture at the initial thought of affordable housing. And we're really proud to be able to bring something like this to Lake Havasu at the price point that we're looking at. This one's obviously decorated very nicely and put together very well. And that's what we intend on doing and helping the residents have. This unit has some outdoor living space that obviously our climate is ideal for. So this is one of the conceptual plans that we've put together as far as space planning is concerned. We have a long ways to go to have the specifics of where roads will be, where the individual types of units will be, and such. We picture villages, so different sized units together, so that a bigger family that has maybe 2 or 3 kids would be in one section with what we picture other families that also have kids, to help build on that idea of having great community. The tiny homes being together, so maybe single people or younger families that are just starting out would be in that area. And again, they would kind of like with like, so that it helps everybody that have similar schedules, similar likes and dislikes being together. And then we want a small section that will allow RV spaces. That is for a number of reasons. One, it helps the financial modeling to get financing to make this project happen. Also, it creates a space that allows visitors to stay very close to their family or friends that are living in the community. You can go to the next one. This is another conceptual plan that has been drawn up. We're trying to leverage the views. We have a little bit of views from there that capture the lake, and that we want the clubhouse to be an area where people can hang out and really enjoy that. There's some pictures here that show some examples that we've shared with designers of what we want this community to look and feel like. Obviously, we're not going to have all the grass like in the one picture, but we want it to be substantial, not the not low end at all. We want people that are living here to feel very comfortable that they live in a really nice community and be proud that they live there. You can go to the next slide. So I want to talk a little bit about the process. James went into that. We had our community meeting. Everybody that was there was really happy to hear that we were bringing something like this forward. The majority of the people that were there were from the RV community that's just to the north of this. They are really excited to hear that something like this coming. They would prefer this over the types of uses that are currently allowed in that area, car crushing and the like. It went really well. We didn't have anybody that pushed back and didn't like the idea, which we expected we would maybe have some of that. We just didn't. We went to planning and zoning. They liked this. They recommended, obviously, for you guys to consider this and approve it. So here we are on December 14th, as Luke has shared and James Gray shared, this is one step of two steps. The first step is to get the general plan amended. The next step is to do the zoning, which will actually allow us to do what we want to do. This is just, I like to say we're looking for a nod in the direction that we're going. We decided to divide it up like that. A lot of times they're done consecutively or right together so that you would be voting on both items at once. We wanted to break it up a bit so that everybody has the opportunity to really provide some input and make sure that what we're delivering to the community is really what the community wants. Trying to push it through doesn't really save enough time that it makes a lot of sense. We have put the application in anticipating that tonight's going to go in our favor to ask for zoning, and the zoning that we'll be asking for is manufactured housing. That zoning allows for a density of 10 per acre. I believe, if all goes well, and Luke maybe knows more about this, but we'll be back here in front of you in February. And assuming that we make it through all of that, our plan is to begin construction immediately after that. We can start with basic grading. There's going to be a fair amount of effort that has to go into engineering and working with all the various departments of the city and the state and all of that to make it happen. But some of that has began. And once we get a nod in the right direction, we're going to put all the fire on the people that need to get this done moving forward so that we can help this project come to fruition as soon as possible. And thank you for your time. If you have any questions, we're available.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Gates. Can we talk a little bit about water? So I assume you have water. It's in the EPCOR water district, so I assume you have the entitlements for this type of a project?
Yes, sir. The EPCOR has a substantial amount of water that they gained through the North Point project. North Point had a water issue. They had to get water, and they had to drill a well, and it had a lot of excess capacity. That water is available for us, a portion of that water for us. It is also already installed out there. That's what was installed to provide the water for the RV community that's to the north.
Great. And what's your timeline? So you shared the timeline with this process, but once you actually start moving, how long until the community is fully developed?
Great question. So we picture that we'll probably develop it in two phases. The kind of Village 1 and Village 2 as Phase 1. If you kind of picture just a straight line kind of in the middle of Village 2 there, that would be Phase 1. Then the second phase would be after that. Phase 1, the time frames that we're being given, basically from the time that we have a permit, is about 12 months to build it out. The nature of this project, because we're doing manufactured housing, the homes are all built off site. So as soon as we get a CO on the project, the homes can come in and be immediately available. Unlike, a new subdivision, you have to make the subdivision and then start building the homes. So there's some efficiencies that we gain there. we anticipate that the engineering portion of it will take a total of about 6 months.
And then you would mentioned, is this going to be an HOA in this neighborhood or several HOAs, or how is that going to work?
Yeah, so this project is designed to be all owned under one umbrella. That's how we keep it within the requirements of the opportunity zone that it's in. In order for the investors to take advantage of the opportunity zone, that's something actually that's a really important part of this whole process. The ownership of a project, in order to get the benefits of the opportunity zone, it has to be held for 10 years. And so the investment that's being made, they want it to be a very high caliber, low risk project because they're committing to it for 10 years. Along with that, the ownership has to be central, they can't sell it off. And so the same owners will own the entire project and will operate it. For Lake Havasu, the most similar thing I could say is like the resorts that are along the Islander and Beachcomber, where the owners of the property will set the rules and manage all of the stuff that is like an HOA.
Do you envision allowing short-term rentals in this area?
That's a great question. I'd like to tell you no, but there is a likely chance that there will be some of them that are going to be short-term. Specifically, RV spaces will be shorter-term stays. And from a management perspective, it doesn't make sense for us to have all short-term rentals. I think if the council said, look, you can build this, but no short-term rentals, that would probably be an okay thing, with the exception of the RV spaces. But we also recognize that times change, things change, and there may be some portion of this where we have vacationers or somebody like that that want to have the ability to rent their unit out after they've purchased it. And from a management perspective, we'll put rules in place of how that's going to work and operate, and we would for sure manage the short-term rental portion of that. But I don't want to stand here and tell you no.
Yeah, so I mean, in order to have some workforce housing solutions, I mean, short-term rentals taking up that inventory doesn't help, our situation. But
completely understand the concern. We have to answer to the money to some extent, and the intention is not to have a bunch of short-term rentals in there. We don't feel that builds a nice community like all that I went through. Again, I think if council wanted to say, yeah, we want that, but no short-term rentals in there, I don't think that would be that wouldn't kill the deal.
And then earlier we had a gentleman talk to us at Call to the Public about air traffic noise. And there's also from some other residential dwelling areas in there, there's been an increase in desert traffic as well. So we're getting complaints or comments about dust. What are your thoughts to mitigate those concerns so that these residents know what they're getting themselves into and what that all looks like?
Yeah, so one part of the dust that's created are people that are going across our lot. So when we build on it, that will reduce a substantial amount of that. When you live in the desert and near the desert, whether you're in town or out here, that's part of the territory. As it gets developed, of course, that will be reduced greatly. I think the dust concerns are probably less of a concern. Of course, they become big concerns right at the beginning of the year when everybody's out and excited and doing that. The air traffic concern is a very valid one. It's one that's going to have to be addressed. It'll be in our interest to let people know in no uncertain terms that there is air traffic noise there. It doesn't help us to own the project and have tenants that are upset that we didn't tell them what was going on. They will likely want to move out. And part of the advantage they'll have of this kind of structure is they can pretty easily leave if they want. There are many communities all over the country where they have air traffic noise that affects the housing that's there, and the people that live there do the best they can to get used to it and deal with it. We're pretty fortunate here that our air traffic is generally during the day, so we don't have night traffic currently. There's some, but it's pretty limited. This is not directly in the flight path to the either way of the runway. However, there's no doubt about it, there is going to be aircraft noise, and we're going to have to let the tenants know that.
Yeah, it is reassuring that you're going to be professionally managing it as the investor group, because you have a vested interest, obviously, to make sure that those residents are aware of that situation. So it makes me feel comfortable understanding that's what the situation is.
Yeah, something, if I could just touch on
Please.
that is a little bit of a difference. I do know that the community that's to the north they're individually owned lots. And so the mentality of the residents that are in the RV community is different. They have much more of a vested interest because they own the land. And so they, in a way, feel that they can assert more authority over the airport, for example. I know that there's been a number of complaints from that community about the air traffic noise. And it's this back and forth where the airport can say, well, that community was built after the airport was here, so you really shouldn't complain about that. You knew that it was there. But then they also maybe say, well, there wasn't all this military traffic or something. And so it's this back and forth thing. In our model, as the management, we will hear the complaints long before it goes to the city, for example. And so we'll be able to mitigate that, one, by making it very clear when we sell it. When somebody moves in, they'll know what's going on. We'll make that clear for them so that they're comfortable with it. And then two, we'll be able to deal with it internally, and hopefully it won't spill over into the hands of the city.
Yeah, thank you. Councilmember Lynn, did you still have a question?
A couple.
Okay.
I just have a hard time with wording essential housing, workforce housing, affordable housing. So I guess what I'm asking, and nobody's talking about, how much are they going to be?
So it's hard for us to answer that question because obviously the market changes and the cost of getting these is difficult. So the best answer that I have for that is we want the product that we have to compete price-wise for a similar unit in town. For example, a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment in town where you have shared walls, they're not new facilities, whatever that price point is where we want the all-in cost for one of these people to be, including the financing of the unit that they own and the space rent that they would be paying. If we can make it less than that, obviously that would be great. I don't think that's going to be likely.
When you say that, I'm reading in the letter that you sent on here on the amenities and the monthly cost. You don't have a cost on the either. What the monthly cost is going to be?
We anticipate, based on the current market rates, that the monthly space rent average, different sizes are going to be different, will be around $600 to $650 a month. And then the financing that's available for the units themselves, again, depends on price and all of that, some creditworthiness. There's a lot of things that go into that. We anticipate that price combined will be competitive with a home that somebody could rent in Lake Havasu.
Okay, and then I don't know these answers, so maybe somebody in staff. Is this area on sewer?
Yes.
So, okay, I'm going to ask a question. Probably shouldn't even go here. Talking about these water rate things, how would that affect the water rates out there? Is it going to be per spot, per house? Like, could you explain that to me, somebody?
Yeah, I'll take that. I'll take that question. The good news is more people on the system, the less cost for others that are on the system. But that would be qualified as a per spot or per dwelling. So similar to other RV parks for potentially that spot. I mean, obviously they're still having to work out the details, but it would be per unit. And as it actually comes together and they get the C of O, that would be determined. So,
and
for sewer only. Yeah, water's not. They're not in our water service boundary, so we cannot provide them water. That is EPCOR water service area. So that's just sewer. And so we'd have a sewer agreement with this particular development in order to do that. But those rates would reflect what every other ratepayer pays. Mr. Knudsen?
Yeah, Mayor, if I can, perfect in terms of how the fees work. And then if any information in terms of the need for additional infrastructure in the area, then that would be utilized, the need for the city to use those sewer funds that we collect. And we can talk about that a little bit too. We have a sewer master plan that dictates the future development of the area. And this development would trigger the need for us to invest in sewer infrastructure. And if I could, Greg Frostley, if I could bring you to the podium, just so we can highlight that just a little bit. You make a question in terms of infrastructure. I want to make sure that council gets that answer in terms of what the responsibilities of the city are.
Sure. Thank you, City Manager. Good evening, Mayor and members of council. I do appreciate the question. It gives me an opportunity to correct one thing that Mr. Morris mentioned. He said that there was a manhole at the intersection behind the Lowe's store. There is actually a manhole there, and there's a sewer pipe paralleling Lowe's on Chenoweth down to the highway, but it's not connected to anything. So it's not something that can be used for this project without some of the additional investments that the city manager mentioned. So the good news is, this project, there you go. Yeah, that gray triangle is actually our influent pump station. So that everything that gets pumped to the North Regional plant flows to that pump station and then moves on. So there's probably some very good options for them to get there somehow, but I don't know what available capacity is. I don't know what type of wastewater generation this project is going to generate. It's very preliminary. I'm actually learning quite a bit about this project tonight. So like I said, the city will be investing. The master plan from 15 years ago, excuse me, has gravity sewers in this area, but they're not there now because we didn't build them because there wasn't any development in the area, right? We're currently underway with an updating of our master plan, which could agree with the previous one, possibly not. When we built Walmart in the mall, things like that, the north plant didn't exist. So we're pumping sewer flows right past that plant and then pumping it back up. So there's probably going to be opportunity through this current master planning effort to change direction with some of our wastewater flows. The current 15-year-old master plan has a regional lift station identified out in front of Lowe's near the highway to collect that entire area and then pump back to the influent pump station. So in the interim for this project, there are probably many opportunities to tie directly into the influent pump station, but we would consider that a temporary connection.
Yeah, thank you, Mr.
Does
Frostley.
that answer?
Yeah, does that answer your question, Councilmember Lynn? Okay.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. And Mr. Knudsen, is that the point that you were looking to have made?
Yeah, there'll be a need for additional infrastructure in that area. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page and we understand these projects require infrastructure. And that's what we do.
And who pays for that infrastructure?
Great question. So, I mean, in terms of that, the infrastructure that Mr. Frostley indicated, we're talking probably to the tune of about $1 million, give or take, for not just for this what would need for this development, but for development in this area as it builds out. Right now, tonight we're talking about a minor amendment to the general plan. We'll be talking about some rezoning efforts moving forward. When we get into some of the building permit aspects, is where we can have some of those conversations. But certainly, council's got to feel comfortable with a verbal discussion on what that looks like and how comfortable council is to share that cost, take the burden on, or indicate that those costs would be carried by others.
All right. Yeah. Thank you.
You tell me.
Yeah. Councilmember Koch, did you have comments?
I just wondered, Jess, do we have a trigger point that we're going to know? I mean, we let a developer get started and we start doing these rezones. At what point are we going to have to know for sure that we have this budgeted, we're ready to go, or we're going to hold a project up and we've already approved all this, they're ready to go, whether it's this project or any other project? I mean, is there a trigger point that we have that we can identify so that we're prepared and that we're not letting a developer get so far along and then saying, oh, you're going to have to wait on us and we don't have the $1 million or we didn't budget it to make the project viable? Because obviously you need a sewer.
Yeah, no, great point. And we want to make sure that we're prepared moving the ball forward in whatever direction, far before any dirt gets moved and whatever else too. So part of the permit process and the application process, if and when we get to that point, would their engineers have will identify some of the stresses needed for wastewater. We'll take a look at that data with Greg and Crop Frostley and our engineering team to make sure that those numbers make some sense. And before any dirt is moved, everybody will have a solid indication of what the stresses of this development would place upon our existing infrastructure for the short term and long term. So we'd know at that point. But we're not there at that point yet. We need to get to a point where there's some middles that include some engineered drawings and better indication of a number of units, and again the stresses to the system.
Mayor,
does that help?
And we could potentially be at that point before we get to the plan to the rezone process at the future meeting, right? And that's when we would talk about some of those things.
Based on the time frame I saw, I wouldn't think we would be there.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't take place at that. Typically, it would take place at that time frame. We're talking about a land use. So we're talking about tonight is a minor amendment to a general plan, which is a modification to the general plan that dictates land use. And then, as Mr. Gates indicated, the next steps is to come back for a rezoning effort, which changes the land use. So that at that point, the property owner has the ability to develop that property based on that land use. But you still got to come before the city and talk about congestion and ingress and egress, and is our fire trucks going to have access to the area, and what are the impacts on the roads and the neighborhood and so forth, and then what we're talking about today is that stress on the wastewater. So that would take place after the rezone, and then that's when typically we'd get all the submittals that would cover all that. That's the typical process.
Mayor?
Yeah, Councilmember Campbell?
Through the couple years I've been working with opportunity zones myself as a developer, and I understand that the state legislation is really working hard to send grants, funding down for workforce housing, and these price points sound like they're within that. Is that something that we can look into to see what kind of funding we might be able to get from the federal level or state level that might assist in some of this infrastructure and make it a win-win for our community?
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Campbell. I'll turn that over to Mr. Gates or Mr. Gray to answer that question. That's an applicant question.
We do have a meeting early next month with state authorities on that. And so we'll be discussing this project and a few other potential ones. So that's a great idea.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Vice Mayor.
I have a question. We keep talking about workforce housing and affordable housing. My concern is we do not need affordable housing for second homes for Californians is a big issue. To me, if it's not a rental right now, to me, that's affordable housing in Havasu. If there's an affordable house that's put on the market for $300,000 and somebody can afford it, someone from California, a second home can move 4 or 5, and that's where our prices are going right now. So we want to blame vacation rentals, but it's also, I tell people we're the new Palm Springs. We're the second house. It's all about having a second house in Havasu. So I guess my concern is I like the idea we use the term affordable housing and workforce housing, but I was hoping these were rentals, because without it, then it's, we have a nice community for people to have a nice second home. And like you said, if they have a second home, then they can rent it out over Airbnb when they're not here. And with that, we have a nice community, but we haven't done anything for workforce housing. So I guess that's my ultimate concern is when we call it workforce housing will some of these be rentals? Because like I said, without that, if you get outbid on a house, you're...
Yeah, so nice to meet you all. My name's Evan Bernstein. I'm from the East Coast, but it's always nice to come out here in Lake Havasu. We actually own some properties in Bullhead as well. So I've been learning more and more about your community. I've been doing a ton of research into the community. And in general, in the United States, affordable housing is arguably the biggest problem. You guys have a very interesting market here because it is much more prevalent. And Nancy, to your point earlier, 30% of the revenues are attributed to RVs and servicing RVs. That's a pretty high percentage of that. So bringing in service workers, firemen, policemen, teachers, etc., is super important. And that's why we're building this project. So when you're saying you want to see renters, our whole back out budget to this is to target that rent amount that the tenant or homeowner would be paying and to equivalent that. So rents can move 20 to 25% year over year. If you had more rental supply on the market, because right now, I mean, you might have 10 rentals right now in a single family home. You don't actually know the real equilibrium of what someone would pay to rent right now. That could be 25% higher because now people see, oh, there's rentals in Lake Havasu. Let's go into Lake Havasu. Now rents are up 20%. So by having buy-in to the community, starting at 80, 100, 120 grand for a home, of which we would provide financing for, it actually stabilizes that market and takes some of the volatility out of the rentership of, okay, your rent's now up 20% year over year. Now it's up 15% over year. So I re-signed my lease in New York City up 30% year over year. So by having home ownership, you actually take some of that volatility out of the market where someone moves in and now all of a sudden the next year they're moving out.
Well, I agree, and I think home ownership is great. My concern is if there's a rental, if there's a house to buy or a rental, the second homeowner is going to buy the house here. They're not going to sign a 1 year, 2 year lease to do a rental just to have a house in a second community. The problem is we're having here is so many people from out of town are buying up our houses and making them second homes, and then also in the meantime to offset them and they're turning into VRBOs. So I mean I think it's great, but how can we can't truly guarantee that those houses will go to firemen and police officers. They could go to California resident number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I guess that's my concern is how do we
and I think
protect that?
Absolutely. And that's the biggest concern of any market where your average home price is $400,000. But by coming in and providing a product that's $100,000, it's a heck of a lot better than starting at $300,000, $350,000. So no, you can't guarantee anything. And that's also the beauty of the community. And I know we were speaking about this is our land. What do we want to do with it? Anyone can come in and buy this. But we feel like we're providing a natural form of affordable and attainable housing to be able to just start that conversation, to be able to get the firemen back, the teachers back, the service workers back, and at least have a chance to compete. These homes aren't going to jump 50% year over year. So even though there's 350 potential homes to be put on this project, if 20 are sold to second home Californians, it's not going to be the end of the world. And I think this will still be an extremely successful project, not only from a financial point of view, but also, more importantly, from benefiting the community of bringing more attainable housing into the community.
I hope so. I hope that the local residents and the people that work here are able to afford them and to buy them. And like I said, they're affordable, but if they're affordable for them, they're affordable for everybody.
Yep.
Which like I said, is my ultimate concern with, we have a great community and everyone wants to come here and play. So just my concern.
Thank you. Yeah, Councilmember Campbell.
Mayor, I have talked, just so you know, I've talked to a lot of investors and business owners in this community, and they have been part of the problem, but kind of the solution, which, including myself, have been buying up every home we can find under $400,000. And my intention is to make sure that my staff continues to afford a home if I have to rent them long term. I personally, as an investor, will not be doing VRBOs. And I believe our applicant knows that a lot of people jumped into the VRBO world and are realizing now it's not all what it was made up to be. And we all got excited about it, but I think that might slowly be going down. And I am shocked that I have to spend this much money for initial investment to make sure my workforce continue to be in a pickup truck serving the community. And as a business owner, this again, I don't want to see this change to multifamily, but we have to. What they're saying as a developer beware, they're near an airport. Developer beware, the infrastructure might be a lot, we know it is. Buyer beware, and let government try and watch the process and pray that it all works out.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. Mr. Gates, did you have a
Yeah, I just wanted to, Jim, I really appreciate where you're coming from. I've lived in Lake Havasu for 25 years. I've watched it change tremendously. And the housing options that the workforce has is diminished to basically nothing. This project is designed to specifically address that part of the market. What we've not done is committed to saying you have to have a job here, and like that. I don't know how we do that in a way that makes sense from a financial perspective, as well as a fair housing perspective. We have some obvious things that we have to deal with at that level. Something that I want to share with you guys that's a really important part of the decision that we're making here tonight is that the just under 20 acres that's to the westernmost part of this entire project is already been through this process and is approved plan development for 222 RV spaces. We could build that tomorrow. We're coming tonight saying we're going to take an existing approval that's everything you don't want and getting rid of it to come up with this better solution that it's not perfect. It's just not. And nothing is. As we know, I know that drawing a blank on his name, but the gentleman that owns the mall in that area out there has, Jarrett, has worked to try to figure out a solution out there, and they keep running into roadblocks and financial limitations that doesn't allow that to go forward. I do know that there's people doing some smaller scale projects that are helping, but we don't need 10 or 20. We need 2,000 or 3,000 units. This is really just going to scratch the surface. But to my knowledge, this is the largest project of any type that's addressing the issue like this. I can't think of a better location for a project that wouldn't necessarily be the ideal neighbor for many of the homeowners in Lake Havasu. And what we're asking for, a portion of it's already there. Also, along with that plan development, there were extensive talks with the city regarding the sewer concern that we were talking about. There's actually a already engineered and designed plan that does leverage the use of that plant that's out there. So I don't know if that helps with some of that stuff, but I did want to give you that knowledge to help paint the whole picture. There's already a level of approval out there, and we're essentially asking for a use that is arguably higher and changing it to a use that many would not consider as high of a commercial value in order to bring this project.
Thank you. All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this matter? Yeah, please just make your way to the podium, state your name for the record.
Robert Fisher spoke earlier about the concern I have with the airport. The eastmost 1/3 of that development lies directly under the center line of the runway, extended a little over a mile is by my guesses here. And my concern is that may be below the minimum required altitude for airplane operations to clear 500 feet above congested areas. So that would be something for the airport people to be weighing in on. And I understand they made a reasonable hand-waving argument about the noise and the people coming in there and knowing that there's noise. But it's still going to get complaints. The people in the South Point complaining about the road noise on Highway 95, which would be probably at their house, probably 85 decibels. But when you got an F-35 flying over this thing, you're going to get 100 decibels. And that'll shake you right out of bed at 500 feet. So that's my concern. Protect the airport and the surrounding environs of it so that you can have a decent airport operation. I lived in Orange County, California for many years, and you took off in an airplane there, they'd go up a little ways and they'd pull the power back and scare everybody. It was such a thing they had to advise the passengers that what they were going to do so they didn't scare them. They had to go out over the golf course, and then they had to pull the power back till they got over the expensive homes out over the edge of the ocean, and then they could put the power back on because the people who lived there built their houses under that airport flight path, and they didn't like the noise, so it disrupted air operations. So my plea here is just protect the airport because it's a valuable resource, and eventually maybe we could get some air service here so we didn't have to drive everywhere we go. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Fisher. And just so you know, that we just updated the airport master plan, and the aprons that you're talking about are already protected and secured. So this development would not impact that. However, that doesn't address the noise, but it does address the need for the aprons that are required there. Sure. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Fisher. Would anyone else like to address the City Council on this matter? Yes, please just state your name.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Gunnar Mitchell, and I'm here on behalf of the Lake Havasu Association of Realtors. I'm their president-elect, and we are in favor of rezoning this housing opportunity. As you guys all know, workforce housing has been an issue in Lake Havasu. Realtors, we've been on the forefront of it. I've heard property managers over and over again hear from teachers, nurses. We have a lot of travel nurses here, and they're literally in tears almost when they come and address the board because they have 10, 20 people where they don't know where to put them. So yes, this isn't going to be the exact ideal, perfect little single family home that they're going to build all this equity in. But at the end of the day, this is a step in the right direction of providing homes for people in Lake Havasu City. It's another option for Havasu residents to take on. And as your point, Councilmember Dolan, we don't control who comes and buys here in Lake Havasu, but that's the beauty of America in my eyes. At any time, I can go over to any state in America and I can go buy property. And that's the beauty of changing you vote where you live and everything like that. That's the beauty of America and our freedom. So I think this is a step in the right direction, and the Lake Havasu Association of Realtors urges you guys all to be in favor of this rezone.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the City Council on this matter? All right, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to council. So what we have in front of us today, we had a lot of discussion about attainable housing, workforce housing, and the like, but we have a future land use is the mechanism that we're here talking about. It's coming to us with a recommendation from Planning and Zoning on 7-0. Any additional discussion? Councilmember Lane?
Yes, I had some comments I wanted to make on this. I was very excited about this when I first heard about it. You know, in the old days, they used to call them mobile home parks. And they rolled them in, and now it's pre-manufactured homes. They're all over the country, where the landowner owns the land, and then they rent out the space, and the people own their actual home as they're renting that space. To Mr. Fisher, this is being built in an opportunity zone. If it wasn't for the fact, the opportunity zone is near the airport, and we do have to protect the airport. But they wouldn't know that going into it. And so in my mind is this is workforce housing, and I'm not calling it affordable housing, but workforce housing out there, and then be a place for our people to live. What I was really hoping to hear was that we are going to have CC&Rs, covenants, codes, and regulations that say that if you own the home, you have to reside in it more than 6 months out of the year. We're not going to have short-term rentals with the exception of the RV place, because at this price point, I can see exactly what's going to happen. The investors from other states are going to come in. They're going to say, ooh, that's an affordable house for $130,000 to $175,000. I'm going to buy that. That's going to be my vacation home. I'm not renting it to anybody. But you know what? The city just spent $1 million to sewer to make sure that I had a great vacation home. So I was very happy about this before, and now I'm not, just based on what you've told us here tonight. So thank you.
And yeah, please. Yeah.
Just to address that. So going back to the land ownership 10-year hold, we own the land. With that said, someone wants to come in, they may want to rent out their house. As a community owner, we can put in almost whatever rules that we want, including restricted breeds, restricting short-term rent. We can put that in CC&Rs, and we can make it to a fact where if someone wants to rent their house on Airbnb, fine. But now that tenant who's coming in, they need to stay for more than 2 months, or they need to go through their own background check. we don't want to manage these short-term rentals. We get no additional upside from them generating additional revenue on their home, just from a financial perspective. So we're not coming into this development and saying, oh, this is going to be a great short-term rental place for everyone else, because we, as the investors and the financiers of this project, we don't benefit from that. So in addition to that, it's most likely not going to make neighbors very happy. Those who don't want short-term rentals in their community by itself. And we want all of our community members to be as happy as possible. A good tenant is a happy tenant. So having short-term rentals there, we may allow them. And we're not going to say right now that we're absolutely not going to allow them, but we have the power of setting specific rules and regulations to do it the right way.
And I understand that. That's what the other gentleman said also. If you're saying that we don't want short-term rentals other than RV, you can make that happen. My concern is vacation homes, not short-term rentals, but people from other states coming here saying, I can buy a vacation home for $130,000. I'm buying that house and I'm going to be there for 2 weeks out of the year, and the rest of the time it sits empty. It's not a short-term rental. It's not a long-term rental. It's a vacation home for somebody that lives out of state, and we're spending $1 million on the sewer project for them. That's where my concern lies. I would like to see it in the CC&Rs that say the house has to be occupied for a minimum of 6 months plus a day out of the year, whether it's the home owner or they rent it full time, but it needs to be occupied so that we have real workforce housing, not just subsidizing another vacation home like North Point. North Point is almost all vacation homes. They're coming in and spending $300,000, $400,000, and they're there 2 weeks out of the year. You know that some of those people are going to buy these houses and only be there 2 weeks out of the year. We're right back to square one where we started, still looking for workforce housing.
That's a great point, and that's something that we'd absolutely consider.
Mayor?
Yeah, Councilmember Campbell, then we'll go to Councilmember Moses.
Right now, Angle Homes in Kingman, Arizona is expected to build approximately 300 homes in a beautiful development. I've been doing everything I can to get them to Lake Havasu City. These conversations we're having right now is what keeps developers away from us. And what they just said was the more we add to the community, the better chance of this going away. And I know it sounds like we're always disagreeing, but I'm more on how do we get developers in here? You have one that's doing a substantial investment next to an airport, and they're doing a risky business plan. It may or may not work, but it's not on the city government to have to deal with it. It's on them. And I guarantee you, if they have all their owners selling their units and moving out, they're definitely going to change the model moving forward. So I just appreciate, even though this is great industrial property that McCulloch thought would have a better land use, who knew today that we'd be sitting where we are? Nobody did. Nobody did. So I appreciate these land developers coming here. I don't want to start restricting everything they do. It's their risk. It's their tax dollars. That's all I have to say.
Councilmember Moses.
And let me echo a lot of councilman members' sentiments. First of all, just thank you. Thank you for your interest and your willingness to invest in our community. Spending $1 million. I agree with David. Spending $1 million of our current taxpayers' dollars on a piece of land that could or could not help us is worrisome. What assurances do we have? And so if you're willing to sit down and give us some of those assurances, with our investment into the community, that's kind of the only way I could see us moving forward. If you have a willingness to sit down and help us solve this problem. And I don't know when we would have that conversation.
Yeah, so what we're doing tonight is a land use. So do we think on the map that we are willing to change this land from employment use to high density residential? That's all we're talking about tonight. And then when it comes to the zoning or the rezone, we can maybe ask for some tools in the way that they manage their
and we can do
development.
that in the zoning.
During the zoning hearing,
Yeah.
we can have some of those
I
discussions. But
almost
I
just
think
wanna-
they're hearing and listening right now as well. So they might come.
I just want to, we could potentially save them time and money if that is not a viable option. And so that was the question I was going to have today.
Sure. Yeah. Tonight,
If they're
again, the
willing
agenda
to
is,
engage in those conversations.
Yeah, tonight is about a land use. So are we willing to do this land use from employment to high density residential? And then they'll come forward at a future date to the Planning and Zoning Commission and then to us for a zoning request, which is their intention that they mentioned this evening. So,
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Vice Mayor Dolan.
Once again, I just want to thank you guys for coming to us with this. A lot of this is not necessarily directed at you. It's us having a conversation about affordable housing and touching on a lot of areas that I think we do need to have these conversations. And like I said, I'm glad that you guys are the first one. This is the closest thing I've seen to affordable housing. I hope that we can take all this in and maybe you guys can utilize some of that too, because I could definitely imagine, heck, like you said, a lot of the business owners. I'll buy a couple of them for my, to be able to have a place that I can put, employees in. I could see them being sold out before they even hit the market, just with people in Havasu that need them right now. So, but I do thank you. I know we're a little critical up here, and of course that's our job. Like I said, we can't afford, we can't regulate, short-term rentals. It's regulated by the state. We have no control over it. It's very frustrating for us. I know a lot of the community has frustrations with it, but as you see, it comes across in meetings like this. But I do appreciate you guys coming up with a solution. Hopefully you can take some of those into consideration because, I think it's a great opportunity, and it is, like I said, it's not the most prime piece of land that we're talking about. It is out by the airport, and it's an opportunity zone for a reason. So I do appreciate you guys putting your money where your mouth is and making this work. And like I said, it is your risk. And like I said, I could see it being purchased, like I said, by local people that want it. So I do thank you. And like I said, it's also, this is a conversation we need to be having. And unfortunately, we can't always have these conversations. They have to be very specific and everyone has to know about it. So we kind of bleed off topics sometimes about, affordable housing and different things like that. We all have our different perspectives. So I was appreciated to have that conversation today. And I thank you guys for presenting this. So
thank you, Vice Mayor Dolan. Councilmember Campbell.
Oh, one more statement. I would be more than honored to invest in the infrastructure if it was only $1 million, not to mention, like we said, there were state grants and other things available because they know this is a serious problem within our community. And Mr. Frosley already stated it. This could be a win-win for our community as well because we could fix some of the issues out there that we have currently. So I believe as a community, it's our dire responsibility to do anything we can to get workforce to stay in this community because they're selling their homes every day and they're going to Kingman where there's a lot more jobs. So if it costs our community $1 million, sign me up.
Yeah, and if I may, those numbers are not firm. We do not know anything about what the numbers are.
No, I've heard them many times. We're legally bound by those.
So we will be having, we have to do some things to know what that's all going to look like.
Mr. Mayor?
Would any council member like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion.
Yeah, please, Vice Mayor Dolan.
I move to adopt resolution number 21-3548, approving a minor amendment to the future land use map of the city's general plan for 39.54 acres of Meadows and Bounds property located at 6590, 6600, and 6700 Chenoweth Drive and 1800 and 2200 Victoria Farms Road to change the future land use designation from employment to high-density residential.
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Vice Mayor Dolan. We have a second from Council Member Campbell. If you can hit perfect. I think, Ms. Williams took care of that for us. All right, so we do have a motion to approve this. Is there any additional comments? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for your investment in Lake Havasu City. Yeah. All right, moving on to item 9.6 is accept a donation and direct staff to build 4 pickleball courts at Dick Samp Memorial Park. Mr. Keene.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before you tonight, we have to accept a donation from an anonymous donor and direct staff to build 4 pickleball courts at Dick Samp Memorial Park. On November 25th, an individual who wishes to remain anonymous met with city staff to offer an initial $250,000 donation to build the final 4 pickleball courts in the current master plan at Dick Samp Park. The donor did state that if the project cost were to exceed $250,000, they would make another donation to cover the additional costs. This item was not heard by the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board as it came forward after our last meeting, and the donor wishes to complete this donation before the end of this fiscal year, or of this calendar year. I want to go through a little bit of background of kind of how the pickleball courts were originally designed and up at Dick Samp Memorial Park. So Dick Samp Memorial Park, for those of you that may or may not know, is on the northern end of our town, off of Avalon Avenue. This is the current master plan for the park. As you can see there in the center, there are 16 pickleball courts that were originally, or that are part of that master plan. In 2016, I'm sorry, that plan was redesigned in 2016. In early 2017, the first 4 pickleball courts, as you can see here on this aerial view, were opened, and that project cost approximately $179,000. In 2020, the City Council approved the construction of the next 8 pickleball courts, which are shown here in this plan. And those courts opened in May of 2021. The cost of that project was $658,000 with a $100,000 donation from the Lake Havasu Pickleball Association. The project did include some additional work as far as grading the parking lot, a lot of retention walls, and getting ready for some future improvements. Also in this diagram, you can kind of see in the upper area is where the future 4 pickleball courts would reside. Some of the next steps, if council agrees to accept this donation and move forward with the project, we would need to create design and construction documents, bid out the project, which would again come before council in that process, and then start construction. In initial conversations with staff, it was approximately a year to full completion and be able to open the courts. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Keene. I don't have a question, but I do have a comment since this is an anonymous donor. Hopefully you're watching this meeting. And what makes Lake Havasu City so amazing is citizens and folks like this that are willing to step forward to make our community a better community. And we are very grateful to the donor, and we thank that person, and it's going to really enhance all the great amenities already out at Dick Samp Park. Generally, when we talk about Dick Samp, we think about pickleball, but it also is a Little League field that's multi-use, and that was its original use. And some of those improvements we were able to make a year or so ago included some enhanced parking facilities for that. So again, to the donor, a big thank you for this. Are there any questions, comments from members of the council? All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this matter?
Mayor, City Council, my name is Doug Carr. I'm the ambassador for Lake Havasu Pickleball. This is awesome. We want to thank the Secret Santa for this. This was definitely a surprise. Jess mentioned something last week, and I didn't get what he was saying. And then I looked at the city council agenda. What? Wow. So I asked Dave, and our president, and he didn't know nothing about it. So we want to really thank that person, that her or him. We do appreciate this. And hopefully we can get this done soon and get Lead Sports to do it all, because they're a great contractor. But and then maybe the Pickleball Association would like to put lights up, and this might be the time to do that too. So we want to thank the city council and the donor for this generous donation, and hopefully it doesn't take a year. You know, there are some days over 100 people playing pickleball up there at Dick Samp. So, and Stuart, congratulations. And now you can start playing pickleball. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carr. And it is going to take a year. That's what the plan is. So, yeah.
My name is David Rossing. I'm the president of the Pickleball Association. And you can't believe how excited I am to have one of our pickleball players step forward and contribute to completion of the project to make it a major completion. We as an association have also made a commitment to the city to bring $50,000 in addition to work on lights for one of the courts up there. So maybe it can be part of an existing court or it can be part of the build that comes along. So anyway, thank you for consideration. Yeah. We're excited.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for your commitment to that park. Would anyone else like to address the city council on this matter? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to council for discussion of possible motion.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Lane.
Yeah, and I'd like to also say thank you to whoever the benefactor was and to the Pickleball Association. You're putting other dollars. You put dollars before, now you're putting more dollars. And it doesn't just benefit the Pickleball Association, it benefits all of Lake Havasu and the other sports that use that facility. So I think it's awesome. So with that, I move to accept the $250,000 donation and direct staff to start the process of constructing the final 4 pickleball courts at Dick Samp Memorial Park.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Lane and a second from Councilmember Lynn. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And again, thank you to the donor. All right, we'll move on to item 9.7, award contract for professional services for a fire, rescue, and emergency medical service comprehensive operational study to AP Triton, LLC. Chief Palafis.
Mayor, Council, thank you. I do have a representative via Zoom from AP Triton, Mr. Kurt Ladapow. I'm going to introduce him and then give a presentation to give you what the detail of the study. In the fiscal year of 21-22, when I first came here for accepting the position, been here 20 months. It's gone by quick. But during my first budget process, I requested a comprehensive study, not a review, a comprehensive analysis of the fire department's operations and the potential for a feasibility study for expanding ALS transport here in Lake Havasu. That was based on my review of being here, doing my research prior to even accepting the job of the comprehensive analysis that needs to be completed for Lake Havasu City's fire department. We went through the RFP process and we received 2 RFPs. We had a committee that vented the process, and we are recommending AP Triton for the scope of work. Based on their track record, their reference checks, what they have performed in other studies, we feel very comfortable that they could provide us a great study for our city. The study is a multiple study. Yeah, first it's going to look at the response times, station locations, something that's been a question that I've gotten often here in Lake Havasu as the fire chief. The thing is, every council meeting I go to, we look at our growth. We continue to grow at a rapid rate, and this is a perfect time to have this study done. Now, the thing is, I'm having a team of consultants come in there with expertise in finance, ambulance, fire, rescue. This is a perfect opportunity to bring them as a team member on for a reasonable investment. This is what we're doing, is investing into our fire department to make sure we have the adequate staff, the appropriate response time, and the appropriate services for the residents of Lake Havasu. Very important to us. With that, I will introduce Mr. Ladapow from AP Triton. He's the vice president that will give the presentation of how we are going to approach this study. So Kurt, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you, Chief. And
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, for this opportunity to discuss our proposal. And hello from snowy, very chilly northern Nevada tonight. I did plan on being down there, but the weather didn't cooperate, so I apologize for not seeing you in person. I'd like to compliment the chief. He mentioned the RFP. As the vice president of operations for the company, I oversee all of our business units, and all the RFPs actually cross my desk. All the requests for proposal actually cross my desk before they're handed out to the appropriate unit. And the thoroughness and detail that was contained in this RFP was absolutely top notch. In reality, the chief and his team put together a request for proposal that included all the elements of 3 different types of studies. A community risk assessment standard to cover, which I'm very pleased that he did include the community risk assessment, because that's one of the best ways to align when you do the fire station location studies. Master plan, which will give you recommendations out 15 plus years, and then an ambulance feasibility study, which is something that we're well versed in all of these. Let me go to screen share. I just realized I hadn't done that. I apologize. All right, can you see my title slide? I'll go from the beginning. I was mentioning the thoroughness of the chief's RFP and how appropriate for that level of an analysis due to the self-reliant situation that your community is in. And you all know that better than I. But as I was looking at the workup on some of the submittals, and the team has actually started doing some workup on GIS already, it became very, very apparent how self-reliant you are and the value of this type of a study. You know, at Triton, we pride ourselves on our neutral third-party approach to projects. It's something that we hold near and dear, and we protect it. Your study, as well as all the ones that we take on, will be based on comprehensive data analysis, research, science, and nationally recognized standards. We don't just pull answers out of the box. We don't walk into your community with preconceived notions from other projects that we may or may not have done. And this is just a little overview of the company. I'm not going to go into it in depth. You've had a very long evening. Our team, in our proposal packet are the bios of each one of these team members. While I was watching the proceedings of the meeting before I was able to come on, I actually did the math. This team has over 200 years of experience in the fire rescue and EMS arena. And they were specially picked. This is what I do with the project manager, and your project manager on this project is John Stouffer. We look at the RFP, we go to our bench, and we identify the best qualified individuals to match the scope that we propose to you, but more importantly, be able to deliver the expectations that are contained within your RFP. Normally, I'd go through all these bios, but this is a very large team, and it's been a long evening. So I'm going to hit some real quick sections of the scope of work, but it's important that I mention that the scope of work has been designed to bring forward the analysis that the team will need to develop the recommendations. I've also want to point out that our team has been developed to work in concert and complement the fire department team. Without a team approach on these types of projects, it's hard to come to a final product. But more importantly, it's our expectation that our partners on the fire side will definitely work with us and hold each one of us accountable for our timelines and our deliverables. The scope of work is designed to bring forth the analysis, the findings, and the recommendations that will help set the stage, if adopted, after review, for your department to not just idle, but move forward from this point and for the next several years. So project initiation is a key element. We develop our work plan. The fire department team, our team work together to develop the work plan. We start digging in and procuring the information and data. And as you see in our proposal, the list of information and data that we go after is extensive. And given the depth, if you will, of your RFP, it will require a lot of analysis. Stakeholder input for us is real critical. I've often stated that from my perspective, and I do these studies myself, I'm a project manager as well. From my perspective, the stakeholder element is one of the more important elements of the study, where the team actually comes on site. They meet with your internal stakeholders, they meet with the elected officials, they meet with members of your community, and we get a feel for the community and we get a feel for the project. The results are summarized, built into groups, and actually become a part of your study. I mentioned that the RFP is actually embodied, if you will, 3 different types of studies into one very complete study. And what you see on the screen here are commonly embedded within a master plan and a standard of cover. And so the team is made up of experts in all of these fields. As you saw in the pictures, we even have a CPA on the project, but we also have GIS analysts and other program specialists. The feasibility study for the EMS portion or the ambulance portion is in fact embedded, and the development and the research and the analysis runs parallel with all the other components. Our references are there in the proposal for your review. Ambulance feasibility studies are something that we do on a regular basis. We've got 4 of them going on right now, and we do them throughout the United States. Community risk assessment. The community risk assessment component that the chief and his team built into this RFP is fully aligned with the Center for Public Safety Excellence standards. It is an extremely comprehensive community-wide risk assessment of everything that the department is expected to protect. The development of that risk assessment is extremely critical as we look at the staffing patterns, the staffing models, effective response force capabilities, and look at the future. It was interesting for me to sit in on your meeting and listen to some of the discussions about land use changes, et cetera. That's exactly some of the data we're going to be looking at and more as we develop your community risk assessment. We do not draft these studies blindly. As I said, we work as a team with the fire department team. This is where it all comes together. However, before we move into the final, we will develop everything that you see on this screen right here into what's called a technical review. The technical review will be presented to the chief and his team, and we'll walk through it together. Every element of the study we'll walk through. We will solicit their input. We will field questions, and where necessary, we'll make adjustments. Once we've come to an agreement on the technical review, we develop the final draft, and we produce the electronic versions and publication of the report. And another really important milestone within the study is the presentation to the elected officials in an open meeting. It was very refreshing to hear the comments of transparent government. It's something that I'm used to and something that myself, when I was a fire chief and the city team I worked with, paid a lot of attention to, and I see that you guys do as well. So here's a basic overview, a summary, if you will. It starts with a conference call with our project team and the fire department representatives. Sorry for that. A collection of the data and information. We utilize a Dropbox platform to share data. We found it to be extremely efficient, especially when sharing large files. We're going to obtain and analyze the data and information and Simultaneously, once the data starts being loaded, the team members grab their pieces of the data and the information and start the work. John and his team will schedule your on-sites with the various stakeholders, et cetera. At a minimum, they're going to be on site for 3 days. We subscribe to regular communication throughout the process with the team members from the chief's team as well as ours. As I mentioned, the chief and his team will have ample opportunity to input for discussion as we build it. And once we complete it, there's a technical review, and then there's the final presentation. With that, I did try to get through it fairly quickly. As I mentioned, I'm very respectful of the long evening you've had so far, and I'll attempt to field any questions you may have.
Thank you. I'll turn it back over to the chief. For
Yes,
some remarks.
Kurt, thank you so much for the presentation. One thing I want to stress with council, this is something that I planned for. We want to do this study. We want to set that master plan for the fire department for the next 5 to 10 years. We are going to hold this consultant accountable for all the benchmarks that are going to be met in our RFP. And this will be a great addition for us to move forward to the future and for the future growth of our community and make sure that we have the appropriate services for them. So I appreciate this investment and I appreciate the approval for this moving forward with our study.
Yeah, thank you, Chief. And I appreciate your vision and foresight to make sure that we have the best public safety services available for our citizens today and into the future. So thank you for bringing this forward to us. Are there any comments or questions from members of the council? Yeah, Councilmember Lynn?
I just have a quick question. Will the Firefighter Association be part of this process and the conversations?
Absolutely. They are a key stakeholder and all of you will also be.
Yeah, and in the evaluation process, just to get to here, they were involved, as was Ms. Olson, Mr. Frosley, Ms. Kimmelton, and the association. So it's already showing that we're going to have a very inclusive group of folks. Councilmember Campbell, did you have comments or questions?
First off, Chief, I've seen your resume. It's one of the nicest I've ever seen. There's kudos to that, okay? Because it seems like I'm always beating everybody up. And I know the staff that you're working with, and they're highly impressive. And I know your end concern is our community. I've gotten to know you enough at a distance as well. And my question to you is, if we were to give $60,000 in overtime pay for your team to bring this study to us, a part of me feels that you guys could nail it. What is your opinion on that?
You know, Councilmember Campbell, that's a very good question. This study probably cost us double with overtime. And to have the expertise of AP Triton on our team, and this is the team concept, we're going to be involved in this because I'm going to make sure that the study is done correctly for our future. I don't think the price that we're paying for the investment to have them concentrate on this when we still are understaffed as is with management, that I could not take this on. And sorry.
Well, that's what I expected from you. Your expertise, you know what you're doing, and I trust you 100%.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Lane, did you have a comment or question?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just want to address some concerns that I heard or read about from the public about this is going to be telling firefighters how to do their job and how to get cats out of trees. And this is so far from the truth. This is about, we hear people say, well, we need a fire station here. We need a fire station there. We need more personnel here. We need more personnel there. They should be doing this. They should be doing that. This is a comprehensive study to ensure that the people of Lake Havasu are safe and have the fire service that they need. And, you know, you hear me say, trust but verify. And I do. I trust our city staff, but this is verification. This is somebody from outside to say, yes, you need a fire station over here, or yes, you need an additional unit over there, and maybe you should have your own ambulance service. So this is a comprehensive study to ensure that the people of Lake Havasu are getting the services that they need and that we can adequately provide those services. So good job, Chief. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. there any additional comments before we open the public hearing? All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this matter? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to council for any additional discussion or motion.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Vice Mayor Dolan.
I'd like to make a motion, but make a quick comment as well.
Please.
I thank you, Chief. I think this is definitely something we need. We spend a lot of money on fire services, and I believe 80% of what we do is fire department is medical calls. And you know, it never hurts to look at the way we do things and ask ourselves: Are we doing it properly? Are there ways to save money? Is there a way to be more efficient? And I think especially in this time, you know, employment issues, equipment issues, you know, costs are rising, to make sure we're doing it properly. And so I think your foresight into this, and I look forward to seeing the results. So with that, I'd like to make a motion I move to award contract for professional services for a fire, rescue, and emergency medical services comprehensive operational study to AP Triton LLC in the amount of $76,958.
Second.
And 0 cents.
We have a motion from Vice Mayor Dolan, a second from Councilmember Moses. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt.
for joining us.
Thank you very much for allowing me to video in. I appreciate it. Have a good evening, people.
You too. Thank you. All right, item 9.8 is approved cooperative purchase of one Pierce Velocity fire engine from Hughes Fire Equipment, Inc. through the Houston-Galveston Area Council and approve partial use of contingency funds. Chief Palafis.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before I give the background on the council communication about purchasing the rig, I want to give you a presentation on our plan for our 5-year plan for our refurbishment program and our replacement program. So I put together a quick PowerPoint, 19 slides. But the main priority for us is to get our firefighters to the calls in a safe and reliable manner. To make this happen, obviously, I have to have employees. I have to have a reliable and safe apparatus fleet. And I have to have a plan. So what I did was I came up with a plan, a replacement plan that will get reevaluated each year. All right. And that's what's nice, is just having a plan and sticking with it. So far, we've been doing a great job with our refurbishment. That's going in January. And then hopefully at the end of this, we'll get the approval for a new apparatus. And we've already started this plan. Tonight, I'm just going to focus on our engines and our trucks. Engines carry water and carry firefighters. Our trucks have the ladders on top. I feel like it's just important to explain that for the residents, that there is a difference. The majority, we run our engines. We do have the medic units that we have one staffed in, and I'll present that to you. But our maintenance program is driven on data. It's not always on age. There's other factors that are looked into before we replace a rig. All right. And look at the viabilities. There are going to be mileage, type of service, reliability, maintenance costs, and overall condition. The thing is, out here in at least Arizona, Havasu, the thing is, what hurts us is the heat. It really beats our rigs, and especially the hours that we have on our rigs too. And since I've came to Havasu, I put a real emphasis on tracking the data in regards to our rigs and the costs associated with it. Just to give you an overall view of the entire fire department, we have a total of 50 apparatus, support vehicles, special rescue vehicles. Now, why do we have all these? Well, because we're very self-sufficient. We have a lot of services. We're just missing the train, but we have our airport, we have the water. We're very complex and we're very self-sufficient. Currently, we have 6 frontline engines. We have 2 reserves. Now, the frontline rigs are stationed at each of the firehouses here across Lake Havasu, and we have 2 reserves just in case one of those breaks. We have to bring them up to go frontline. Currently, we have our fire trucks, our quints. We cross-staff 1 truck. When I started here, I looked at the wear and tear on our truck, and why are we running it always to emergency medical calls? It's not needed. I don't need to put that wear and tear on that rig. I'm going to use the resources when needed. So that's why we actually took out one of the reserves and put it frontline. Now, I had trouble implementing this program because we've had some maintenance issues where I couldn't get the the engines, basically, because they're getting older, they were always in the shop. It's very difficult to get parts. Our mechanics do a great job. They try to do the best they can, but sometimes these vehicles require special individuals to work on them. The only way is sending them out. I'm sending them out to Kingman. I'm sending them out to Phoenix. That downtime on that gets extreme. And then I start running out of apparatus. We currently have medic units. I appreciate when I first came here, we have two medic units, one reserve that we got donated from the hospital. The medic units have been a great addition to our fleet to provide that capability of a backup redundant system for EMS. If someone needs to be transported and our provider can't provide it, we will provide it for them. So that's been a great addition. Command vehicles, that's what our battalion chiefs ride in. That's where we have reserve command vehicles and then vehicles that are in the fleet if we get called back. Now, remember, if we have a big incident here, we have a mutual aid system, but our mutual aid system really available to us is Desert Hills, all right? They still have a district to protect too. If I have a big incident, I'm calling in people from Kingman, Mojave Valley, that's 45 minutes away. That's a lot. I'm calling in firefighters from that are living here back home, basically, to come to the station and man for other calls. And this is what's nice about this study. It's going to really impact our concurring calls. How many calls that I'm having running at the same time? I mean, there are times that I'm up in my office that I'm like, I'm eventually going to have to jump in a rig because we're getting that many calls. So we are very busy and the demand is there for us. Specialty vehicles. These are support vehicles at each of our stations for our fire inspectors, our inspectors, and then station vehicles. And then here's our specialty vehicles. We have a boat, all right? We have our hazmat trailer and our hazmat pool vehicle. We have the new CERT vehicle. We have the technical rescue, a medium size, and you'll see pictures of these. And we have 2 desert rescues. We have a rescue drone that's been a great addition for us for Sarah Park. And then we have our ARF truck that has obviously came in very handy in especially the instances that we have. And what it is properly maintaining our vehicles that execute. So, and that's been a benefit that I've been looking at this program, and I have a battalion chief that is strictly just in charge of vehicle maintenance. That's what his sole job is, to track everything. And he provides me the data that we look at, and we work with Public Works on maintenance schedules. So here's our capital plan. So for 2021-22, we started a refurb. Our next item is to purchase a new rig. I know some of these prices are shocking, but the thing is, these were unforeseen. I mean, things have increased drastically in regards to the cost of material. So here's our 5-year plan. We're starting 21-22, which we already have a good start. We're doing a refurb and we're buying a new rig. Next year, we're going to reevaluate and do a refurb, right? I'm not going to see this new engine, if it's approved, until 2023. I'm going to be behind the schedule, but at least we're on the roll of replacing and refurbing rigs. 23-24, purchase a new rig. Then we're going to refurb one, purchase a new rig. And I have a master plan that basically takes all the rigs in account based on our factors and lays out a good plan for us. It's very cost effective, and we're spreading it over a long period of time instead of just purchasing them all at once. I'm sorry, if we could do them all at once, it's just not always fiscally responsible. Sometimes you have to for emergency purposes. So trying the refurb program is going to extend the current asset that we have. It's going to look at our reserves. And this particular plan is getting that new engine, but you're going to see that I'm going to be taking a ladder truck or a Quint out of service because it's reached its service life. And I'm not replacing it with another truck. I already have 2 trucks. Per ISO, I'm within my means of having that backup rig. There's no reason for me to have that. This is what this engine is going to be replacing. So to give you a life cycle of a rig, now I base this on age, but there's also other components of it, just like this new purchase right now. Going through a spec, this is not going to Bradley, picking out a fire truck or a fire engine. You know, we have to customize it because of the terrain we have, the water source, the bigger engine that we need, and just the configurations of carrying all our supplies. So that took about 4 to 20 months just to get a spec. Then we outfitted basically 2 months, and then training another month, and then it goes into frontline for 10 years. Now, all our new rigs will go to the busiest house. And the thing is, the rigs rotate to kind of keep the mileage all even with them. And the busiest one is I want to run out the warranty. Whatever's going to break, I don't want to pay for it. I don't want us to pay for it. I want the warranty to take care of it. So I'm going to run that rig to its full capability. And then what we're going to do is continuously the newest rig will go to the busiest house, and they all start getting downgraded. there's going to be a point around the 8 to 10 year where I'm going to evaluate the rig and say, is it qualified for refurb? Is it worth it to extend this asset? If not, it'll go in reserve and then we'll go into surplus. So for engines, frontline 10, 5-year reserved with a potential refurb. Here's the refurb schedule. This is what we're doing with our current one. A little bit later on the year, but 10 years, 6 months to 8 months to refurb it. We're trying our first refurb out of Vegas, out of Fire Trucks Unlimited, and we look forward to working with them and see what the product. We've heard nothing but good things that people that have done this program saved quite a bit of money. I mean, refurbing a rig, now I'm saving about $531,000 instead of purchasing another one. Eventually, the refurb is going to hit its extended life. It's going to go to surplus, and that's where we're going to keep on this rotation of basically refurbing and buying a new rig. Now, for a truck, life expectancy in a truck, 15 years, 5 years in service. Now, the question is, can these be refurbed? Sure, they can. For a pretty hefty price, about $600,000 in today's market. But the thing is, the way we're using our truck, we're cross-staffing it. We're using it when we need to use it at fires or when it's called for rescues. So I'm not running it on a daily basis to 911 calls. I'm using it for its full capability. So design and cycle for a truck, 18 to 24 months to build. 2 months for outfitting, a month for training, and then 15 years of frontline. 5 years in reserve, then we surplus. So just to give you some data, this is your frontline fleet, all right? So here is the data that we look at, very obviously Excel orientated, but this is the data I look at, looking at miles, looking at hours, looking at the maintenance costs that we have. When I start seeing some maintenance costs that are extreme, that almost cost more than a new vehicle, that's sometimes we'd have to reevaluate it and say, hey, maybe it's time to cut our loss and we have to get rid of it because I'm pouring more money into it. So here's our replacement program based on the sheet. I've already given estimated replacement schedules based on the current market. We're looking at a 9% increase each year on a new rig. That's what the market is telling us right now. So this is our schedule, and you can see that 770 or E1, it's going to be out of service. It's going to get surplused, and hopefully we can use those proceeds to offset some of the costs of this new rig. Here's engine 1. This is the data that we collect on a monthly basis. So I'm looking at, this was put in service to take the wear and tear off the aerial at Station 1. It's a 2006. You can see that it was purchased for $384. The lifetime maintenance cost is $169, mileage, hours, and then I have downtime. So this helps me with vehicle maintenance to say, what's going on with downtime? Why are my rigs out of service? Is it because of parts? Is it just because of age? Or is there something catastrophically happen? So here's our group purchase that we purchased all at once. You can actually see that we're trying to even out some of the mileage. We're still collecting the same data. This is all I'm trying to illustrate you that I collect the data, and based on information and facts, this is where we make our decisions. So this is 2 and 3, and then we have 4 and 5. You can see that 5 was down for 48 when someone accidentally rear-ended us and we had to go get it repaired. But the turnaround was very quick on that because we reacted, because I don't have very many rigs in reserved. And if I have more going down, I'm going to be putting them in trucks or medic units just to have response. This is the one that's going to get refurbed. This is engine 6, and this is going to be a great test pilot to see how this refurb comes out. Again, the refurb, once we're done with it, is going to go to one of the busiest houses to basically take out the warranty. We have a 1-year warranty on this. We're going to basically run it. So this is our frontline truck that was purchased along with the engines. You can see that we've been reducing some of the mileage on it over the time because we're not running as much and we're running it on just certain vehicles. But you can see that there is a big investment to our fleet. And I appreciate the investment that we continue to make in our fleet because I need to have reliable vehicles for us to respond. Here's the other additional rigs that we have in our fleet that are front time and reserve. We have the ARF, we have the Desert Rescue, we have our 2 medic units and our reserve medic unit. We have our medium rescue for technical rescue. We have our boat, our hazmat, and our CERT. So these are other vehicles that cost money, maintain, but they're needed. They're needed for our community, especially what we provide. Here's our reserve rigs. These are obviously a little bit older in the fleet, are hitting that threshold, but these are taken out of service or put in service when I need to take the front line off. And then when I have recalls, I have to have firefighters an ability to respond. So these are the rigs that they use. Here's one of our reserve Quince. It's a 2008. This is one of the last American LaFrances ever made. They went bankrupt, so I wish I can get rid of that one, but I mean, we're going to hold on to it. I mean, the only thing is there's not going to be very much resale value when it comes to this one because they just don't make it anymore. So it's unfortunate. Here's our E1 hitting 20 years old. This is the one that the new rig that I'm going to propose to you is this one's going in surplus. So I know that was quick. I just wanted to give you just a brief overview of just strictly the engines and trucks to give you a better perspective of what we deal with on a daily basis, or what I inherited, and I'm going to maintain it for us. So getting back to the council communication, I'm requesting that we use the Houston-Galveston Co-op to purchase a one Pierce engine, Philosophy Pierce, through Hughes. We're also asking for contingency funds since I budgeted for this item, but I was short by $129,000. The thing is, we are asking for the prepay, which is going to save us about $34,000 roughly if we pay for this vehicle up front. This is backed by a performance bond. So just in case Pierce has some issues and goes, we'll still get our money back. The thing is, the production on this vehicle will take approximately about 19 and a half months to complete. That's if we get approval, we'll go and get the purchase order, and then we'll go out for the spec committee to make sure that they meet our spec, and then we'll get the rig built. I know that was a lot.
Yeah, no, thank you, Chief. That's a great overview. And, just for the record, it's not that you didn't know how to budget. It's the supply chain and all of the costs went up. So,
no.
Thanks for taking the hit on that, but that wasn't your fault. I mean, it's kind of what's just happening in the market now with rising costs, all the need to act quickly and move forward. So do we have any questions of the Chief?
I have a question.
Yeah, Vice Mayor Dolan?
Any $250,000 anonymous donors come forward yet?
I would happy is Seeker Santa from the pickleball would help us out with the rig. That'd be great.
Okay, just curious. Never hurts to ask.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments?
Mayor?
Yeah, Councilmember Campbell.
You mentioned the one that is parted out. I mean, the bankrupt one.
The American LaFrance?
And yes.
Yeah.
That one. I don't know the name of it, but you do.
Sure.
Could you part that out? Because
honestly, Councilman, it's going to be scrapped.
Okay.
So the thing is, when I came here, I actually got them appraised. So I've been doing a lot of obviously behind the scenes learning and just looking at our fleet, and we both got them appraised. The E1 actually appraised out higher at the time than the American LaFrance. But the thing is, it still has some life to it. The only problem that I have is when something breaks on it, they can't find parts for it. So they either got to customize, make it, or it just broke. The thing is, we maintain based on NFPA standards. All our rigs get pump tested once a year. Our ladders get tested by an outside agent to make sure that they're safe for our firefighters to operate. I'm not going to have an unsafe rig for our firefighters because it's important that they have good equipment.
You mentioned the rising costs of the trucks, and I can understand that completely because we're replacing a lot of our older vehicles as well. But what I have found is all the vehicles that we are taking to auction, we're getting a lot higher price for that as well because the demand is so huge that yes, I want the new trucks for a community, but there are other communities that can use your other trucks. Do you put any to auction?
Yes, during our surplus, I haven't as the chief yet because I haven't had the opportunity to surplus anything in regards to rigs. But there's a couple options that we could do. We can actually use Fire Trucks Unlimited to be a broker. They get a percentage, but they might get a higher cost. Or we could put it on our public auction and see what we get. But I mean, it's just, or we just donate it. I mean, there's a potential that some fire departments donated to Mexico. I mean, there's always options.
Mexico's been buying all of our trucks, the old ones. So,
yeah, but most of our fleet goes through surplus for whether it's fire engines, police vehicles, or maintenance vehicles. So
sure.
Right now for older vehicles.
Yeah. All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the City Council on this matter? Yeah, please just make your way to the podium. State your name for the record.
My name is Tim Murray. I've been in this community for about 4 years now. I started on the East Coast and went to the middle of the country and ended up here. This is probably, I spent 15 years in the fire service back in New England. I retired as a captain. This is probably the most comprehensive fire apparatus study and documentation I've seen in my entire career. I am a member of the NFPA, so I know what that's all about. But I've seen fire chiefs come into meetings such as this and say, I need a rig. And everybody kind of looks at each other and says, what's a rig? This is a good presentation. And I also have to compliment the chief on his looking forward. I mean, his biggest thing as we talk is, his biggest concern is the people in this community. And that's important, right? But the bigger thing is to be able to get the staff to where it's needed in a hurry and make sure that the equipment that they're using is performing the way it's supposed to. So my hat's off to you for this big picture look of what's going on. There's a lot going on in this community, a lot of development, a lot of expensive houses. So congratulations, Chief. You did a great presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Would anyone else like to address the City Council on this matter? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to council for any discussion or possible motion.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Councilmember Lane.
I move to approve 100% bonded prepayment for the purchase of one Pierce Velocity pumper from Hughes Fire Equipment, Inc. through the HGAC in the amount of $849,431.79. But I couldn't round it up to 432. Authorize the use of $129,431.79 in contingency funds and authorize the city manager to execute the cooperative purchasing agreement on behalf of the city.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Lane, a second from Councilmember Koch. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, we are ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Mayor, council members, Merry Christmas.
Yeah, thank you, Chief. Item 10 is current events. Are there any council committee reports? Seeing none. 11 is future meetings. Tuesday, December 28th, 2021 at 6 p.m. That meeting has been canceled. And then our next meeting will be Tuesday, January 11th, 2022 at 6 p.m. It'll be a regular meeting. Item 12, are there any future discussion items? Item 13, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, we are adjourned. Happy holidays, everyone. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. We'll see you soon. We are adjourned.